Chapter 1204. It's probably too late to regret it. I heard that he rode a bicycle to school. Riding a bicycle to school? It's really classy. The few of them discussed as they ordered dishes at the window. Although their voices were not loud, the mockery hidden in them could be understood by those who understood. After the three of them finished ordering, they came back first. Bai Juan and the others were still standing at the stir-fry window, as if they were choosing something else. It seems like it's a little crowded. Can you let this cat go under the table? After they came back, one of the three girls spoke. She did not have any ill intentions, but the longest table in the school cafeteria could seat 8 people. 1.5 of it was already used to store school bags. With the dishes laid out so long, there would definitely be people who would not be able to get them. Gu Rou glanced over. The white cat standing beside the table really took up a lot of space, so she said to Aju, "Aju, if you don't eat the stir-fry, can you hug your white cat and sit to the side a little?" Although she said to the side, she was actually being polite. Gu Rou clearly wanted Aju to go to the corner to eat. Aju raised her head when she heard this. She looked at Bai Juan, who was waiting for something over there. Then she called out to the white cat, "Little white." The white cat stood up and jumped onto her head. Aju directly picked up the lunchbox on the dining table and walked to another table. She actually understood that some people would be against animals. After all, cats had a lot of bacteria on them. But Little White was different to her. Little White was the guardian that her mother gave her. From the moment she lived in the temple, Little White had always been by her side. Even her master said that Little White was extraordinary. A human and a cat had always eaten the same things since they were young. Aju could not simply treat Little White as a pet. Every time before eating, she would put a small bowl for Little White, and today was no exception. The people beside her felt that it was strange. A girl tugged at Gu Rou's sleeve. "Look, that cat is actually sitting on a chair. Is it so human?" Gu Rou smiled gently and already had a point. "The cat is gone, so you have a chance to get close to Shaolin. When we eat later, I'll give you a seat so that you can sit away from Shaolin." "All right." The girl blushed and lowered her voice. "But why are these people even bringing Bai Juan's sister to eat? How inconvenient is that?" Gu Rou immediately raised her finger and tapped it on her lips. Then she turned around and looked at Aju. "Don't say such things in front of Bai Juan. You will be unhappy. Aju is still so young. She's still a child. They're both in number 1 high school. He dotes on his sister, so it's normal for him to bring her along. Don't say any more." Even so, Gu Rou knew very well that Aju should have heard everything they were talking about. Aju had indeed heard it. Even though the other party had deliberately lowered their voices, she was sitting behind these people. It was impossible for her not to hear it. However, she didn't seem to have any reaction. She just lowered her eyes and opened the big bag. Such a scene was actually very eye-catching. Bai Juan and the others couldn't see it from their position. The rest of the students eating on the second floor could almost feel the subtle squeeze. It wasn't very obvious. Perhaps only girls could sense it. Aju seemed to be isolated when it came to eating. On this side they were chatting and laughing as they waited. Meanwhile, Aju and the white cat sat together at the place with the weakest light. Whether it was intentional or not, only those who had been ostracized would know that feeling. Clearly, everyone was very polite, but when it came to discussing topics and eating, they didn't bring you along. An old artist once said. He reached out his hand with a faint smile and was about to place his hand on her head. Just as he was about to touch her hand, someone grabbed his wrist from behind. It was Bai Juan. Chapter 1205. The two equally outstanding youths with outstanding temperaments looked at each other. Almost everyone could feel the sparks burning in their eyes. Behind Bai Juan were Shaolin and Li Hailu. Almost in an instant, everyone in the cafeteria looked in their direction. The surroundings were extremely quiet. Gu Rou also paused. Her smile froze on her lips. "What's going on?" "I don't know." The two girls sitting next to her were also a little puzzled. Li Hailu directly walked over and said to Enchanting, "That's Bai Juan's sister. No matter what your intentions are for getting close to her, stay away from her in the future. If you have any problems that you want to solve with us, let's meet on the field behind the school. Let's one-on-one." Enchanting tilted her head and looked at the few people standing behind them. Her lips curled into a smile. "Is this one-on-one?" Bai Juan did not say anything. He let go of his hand with an indifferent expression. Then he turned around and said to Shaolin, "You guys go eat first." At this time Gu Rou and the others also walked over. What's going on? Is this man being rude? Isn't this the transfer student who rode a bicycle here? He still has the money to eat on the second floor? I say, student, you should go downstairs. That's where you should stay. If you want to find a sense of presence in front of Bai Juan and the others, you shouldn't do it like this. The girls were talking and the meaning in their words was obvious. A Jew had always been obedient. Second brother told her not to speak, so she obediently stayed there. However, when she saw these people crowding around her, one sentence after another, every sentence was directed at her second brother. The child really could not take it anymore. With a bang, she pulled up the chair beside her and threw it at the person who spoke with a fierce face. Of course, the child knew her limits and would not hurt anyone. However, the thrill of brushing past the side of her face still made the few girls, including Gu Rou, turn pale on the spot. Ju, what's wrong with you? What if you throw a chair over and hit us? A Jew hugged the white cat with one hand and grabbed Hellion Chinchin's hand with the other. Her eyes were as cold as ice. It's you guys. Hellion Chinchin smiled and supported her forehead with her hand. She didn't say anything. She just let her younger sister pull her along. Her eyes were still filled with love. We are not welcome upstairs. Let's go downstairs to eat. After saying that, a Jew did not even want the lunchbox. She was about to drag Hellion Chinchin downstairs. Little gangster Lee really had an expression of fuck on his face. A Jew, you didn't pull the wrong person, right? This person is your little brother's enemy. He deserves a beating. Get out of the way. A Jew raised her eyes. The hostility in her eyes really shocked Li Hailu. Gu Rou quickly tried to persuade her. A Jew, don't be childish at this time. Also, Hailu, don't be angry. A Jew doesn't have any intention of siding with outsiders. Everyone calm down. Hearing this, Hellion Chinchin smiled. She withdrew her hand from her younger sister's grasp. We don't need to go down to eat. Our seats are already here. How can we leave? A Jew raised her head and looked at her second brother. If her second brother said she would not leave, she would not leave. She sat back down with her legs crossed. She held the cat in her hand and looked at her second brother. Hellion Chinchin was a person who did not put anyone in her eyes other than her family. He sat down with a faint smile and reached out to touch Aju's lunchbox. It's cold. What do you want to eat? I'll go buy it. As he said that, he raised his eyes and glanced at Bai Juan. After all, you were the one who helped me out. A Jew did not understand why her second brother wanted to pretend that they had just met. However, her master had also warned her that before she was 12 years old, it was best not to tell anyone who was in her family. Could it be that her second brother was also doing this because of this? A Jew did not understand. However, the joy of seeing Hellion Chinchin was greater than anything else. A Jew had never eaten with her real family. Now that she heard that Hellion Chinchin was going to buy food for her, of course she was very happy. She immediately stood up with the little white cat in her arms. I'll go buy it with you. All right. Hellion Chinchin smiled faintly and looked in Bai Juan's direction again. Bai Juan's hands were tightly clenched. The box of hot milk in his hand was also somewhat twisted by his tight grip. His gaze was heavy as he watched this scene. Countless emotions churned in his eyes, like the night that had darkened. Gu Rou looked sideways and deliberately took a step forward. You be good. Come back quickly. This is a matter between adults. Don't make things difficult for your little brother. A Jew did not seem to have looked at Bai Juan since just now. Now that she heard Gu Rou's words, she raised her eyes and looked at Bai Juan with her big eyes. Little brother, since there are so many of you, just sit together. I'll carry little white. There won't be a seat even if I sit over there. It will only make you feel crowded. A Jew, why don't you understand? This is not a matter of whether it's crowded or not. Gu Rou let out a long sigh. You're really still young. There are some things that you still don't understand. Come over to sister's side first, okay? As Gu Rou said this, the girl standing beside her was really a little annoyed. How can this child not even distinguish between friend and foe? Is there something wrong with her head? She had not finished the word problem yet. She saw a figure flash past her eyes. It was Hellion Chinchin. She was holding her neck just like that. Even her eyes were cold. What are you doing? Gu Rou was the first person to shout. The students in the cafeteria also stood up. Master Li immediately wanted to hit her with a plate. There was a loud bang. The plate shattered on Aju's arm. This time it was blocked by Aju. Li Hailu was stunned. His face turned pale. Aju, I'm fine. Aju was really fine. This little bit of impact was nothing to her. With a small face she waved her hand. Bai Juan's heart ached terribly. Without waiting for anyone to react, he pulled Aju over. His handsome face turned sideways, and his eyes seemed to be brewing a huge storm. Shaolin, call Uncle Li and ask him to come over immediately. Little brother, I'm fine. Aju broke free and looked at Bai Juan. I don't know what this brother did to make you guys dislike him so much. But I can't bear to watch your girlfriends mock and ridicule this brother of yours. From the moment this brother came in until now, he only wanted to sit next to me and have a meal with me. He didn't do anything overboard. The cafeteria is a public place. Everyone has the right to sit here and eat. Not everyone can mock others just because they have money. Little brother, let's just leave it at that. You guys eat yours and we'll eat ours. Don't make me beat up the people on your side. Hearing this, Bai Juan's eyes suddenly shook. Even his throat seemed to be burned by Aju's words. Chapter 1206. Li Hailu was so shocked that he couldn't say a word. He didn't even believe that those words came out of the mouth of the adorable little Aju. Although there was a problem on their side. Those girls' words were indeed a little unpleasant. But what did little Aju mean? Beat up the people on their side. The two words here included him, Shaolin, and Master Bai. Aju, I don't like to hear you say that. Gu Rou came over and said truthfully, even if you are young, you should at least understand a little. Bai Juan, Hailu and us are all like this because of you. The Bai family has raised you for so many years and has always been good to you. They have never been willing to let you suffer a little. Now that you are beating us up for an outsider, isn't it a little too much? Moreover, for example, if you were not Bai Juan's sister, would he have anxiously grabbed someone's hand when he saw a boy talking to you just now? There's no need. Aju interrupted her. She held the white cat in her hand and the light in her eyes was very faint. There's no need for little brother to do this in the future because I'm not his sister. Little brother just needs to focus on his relationship. I'll handle my own matters. Li Hailu was struck by lightning again. What was going on? It felt like they were going to split up. Little Aju actually did not want Bai Juan to care about her. She even said that she was not his sister. Li Hailu faintly felt a little angry. What was going on with little Aju today? That's enough. Bai Juan's low voice was heard. Li Hailu could not see his expression clearly, but he knew that Bai Juan was not feeling well. What do you mean by enough? What she said, I said enough. Bai Juan suddenly raised his eyes and glanced at Li Hailu. The desolation that flashed across his eyes made Li Hailu kick the stool beside him unwillingly. Aju and the others did not stay in the cafeteria on the second floor. After she said that sentence, Aju dragged Helian Qingchen and left. Bai Juan looked at the two figures walking further and further away. His fingers were clenched so tightly that even his knuckles turned white. He turned his head and stared at the three girls behind him. Then he strode out of the cafeteria. His actions were really like the wind. What the hell? It's not our fault. Why are you getting angry at us? Someone muttered. Shaolin walked over, pushed up his glasses and said, in the future, please don't come to school to look for us if you don't have an appointment. If you do, don't laugh at us for being poor. That kind of topic is very low to begin with. Also, you're sitting at Aju's seat. Why did Aju go to another table? Perhaps Bai Juan was currently angry and did not have the time to think about this matter in detail. However, when he thought about it, it was not as simple as just being glared at. When the three girls heard this, they all felt a little guilty. However, this wasn't what they wanted. They just felt that it was inconvenient to have a child around. Coincidentally, there was a space over there, so what was wrong with letting her go over? They did not know that the transfer student would suddenly appear and greet Aju. They were innocent too. Shaolin did not have the time to care about what these people were thinking. What worried him the most was Bai Juan. This was because Bai Juan was really too abnormal. After coming out of the cafeteria, he did not say a word, nor did he show any emotions. He just sat on the bench in the shade. When the light shone on the side of his face, it was actually a blur for a moment. She finally feels tired of being controlled by me. As if sensing Shaolin's approach, Bai Juan said in a deep voice, she has always been like this since she was young. She can't tolerate any sand in her eyes. Our actions just now must have been very disgusting in her eyes. Shaolin thought for a moment and said, You didn't participate in those topics, nor were those girls. Aju's reaction this time was a little intense. Master Li did not know what to say at the side. He could only nod wildly. Even if that transfer student is a little handsome, he's still a stranger, right? Yes, those girls' words are not pleasant to hear. Even if Aju is not used to it, why would she still challenge us for a stranger? Bai Juan did not say anything. His pitch-black eyes were like a winter night, cold everywhere. Shaolin frowned. Hailu, don't say anymore. In the end, it's still the wrong thing to do today. According to Aju's personality, she will definitely not like it. If those girls can cut off contact, then cut them off. None of them said anything. Who knew that they would think of coming to our cafeteria to eat? When Master Li talked about this matter, he also felt that it was troublesome. Bai Juan did not want to continue this topic because no matter what, the scene of Aju protecting Hellion Qingshan would always appear in his mind. He knew that Aju was different from them. Just as his master had said, she was born with Buddha's fate. The more she was like this, the more she could not bear to see the chaos in the world. However, the person who was protected by her in the past was clearly him. But now everything had changed. She even said that she did not need him. Bai Juan still remembered that when he was in Zhongbei, he had said that when she grew up she would probably not need him anymore. He did not expect that these things would come so quickly. Time passed bit by bit. However, Aju was not even in the mood to eat. She just lowered her head, drooped her ears and looked at the little white cat in her arms. Hellion Qingshan sat beside her. Her clear youthful eyes fell on her fair arm. She picked up a bottle of Yunnan white medicine and sprayed it on it. Her eyes were cold. This matter would not be over just like that. It was said that the onlooker had a clearer view. In addition, Hellion Qingshan was sharp. She locked onto the crux of the problem faster than anyone else. That guru, when the time was right, he would definitely let her know what regret was. However, Bai Juan's reaction was very interesting. It did not seem like he only treated Aju as a younger sister. If that was the case, he would have to observe more carefully. After the incident just now, Hellion Qingshan had roughly understood everything. Perhaps Bai Juan's attention was all on him, so he did not hear Gu Ro's words. The Bai family has raised you for so many years and has always been good to you. They have never been willing to let you suffer a little. Now that you have beaten us up for an outsider, it's a little too much. But he heard it. They had always thought that the Bai family was upright and had a red military spirit. They would definitely not treat Aju badly. In fact, it was indeed so. The Bai family was very good to Aju. There was no difference between being good and being biological. On this point, both he and his brother were very grateful to the Bai family. However, they ignored one thing. The discussions around the Bai family would constantly remind Aju that she was not their biological child. She was always an outsider. Chapter 1207. No matter how close they were still outsiders. So this was the feeling of living under someone else's roof. For so many years. Even in the letter, Aju had never told them about it. Therefore they had always thought that Aju was really living a carefree life. He had grown up with his mother. His brother had grown up with his father. Although his father didn't really care about his children, he was still a man of great importance. At the very least, he would have a family member to accompany him. Only Aju was sent to the temple from the moment she was born. Hellion Qingshan still remembered how much the whole family looked forward to the birth of her little sister. Her mother had also said that the only person she felt sorry for among the 3 children was her little sister. She was destined not to be with her father and the others due to her innate Buddhist affinity. Perhaps only the child herself would know the coldness of the world. In the distance, the campus radio station was still playing a song. The lyrics were like this: "When you are depressed, you will always feel the weight of loneliness. How you yearn for someone who understands to give you some warmth and lend me a shoulder." Hellion Qingshan lowered her eyes and looked at her little sister who was in his arms with a pair of big eyes. She reached out and hugged her. "Sorry, little sister," second brother came late. A gentle breeze blew and snowflakes fell. On the empty field, 2 figures hugging could be seen from afar. The side of the youth's face was always so good-looking. Hellion Qingshan was always more meticulous than Bailey Shangxia. Her doting towards Aju could be seen from her every move. Time passed a little slowly. Especially in the classroom, Bai Juan sat in his seat, but Hellion Qingshan's seat next to him was empty. The more Li Hailu thought about this matter, the more sullen he felt. However, looking at Bai Juan's expression, he did not dare to say much. He could only comfort him. Aju must be too young. She doesn't understand what happened for a while. When she thinks it through, she will definitely feel that what she did was wrong. Maybe after she goes home tonight, the two of you will make up. Aju has always been sensible, but her reaction is a little slow. Don't mind it. It's not a big deal, right? Hailu is right. This matter is fundamentally a misunderstanding. Shaolin also felt that Aju was not sincere. Perhaps she said those words because of the girl's attitudes at that time. Little Gangster Lee's eyes lit up as he continued. Look, even Lindsay has said so. Who is the enemy and who is the enemy? Aju just hasn't reacted yet. Let the child digest it. She will definitely understand why we did that at that time. Moreover, some words were unintentional. Girls are just like that. Bai Juan lowered his eyes and did not say anything. Shaolin patted him on the shoulder. Don't think too much. Aju has to go home eventually. When you pick her up in the afternoon, just tell her everything. But could they really say it out loud? When we are young, we tend to overlook the most important issues. You can't always think that a person won't get hurt just because she's pure and straightforward. Aju was indeed slow, but that did not mean that she did not understand anything. The more ignorant one was, the easier it was to feel uneasy. This was probably the difference between a 12-year-old and a 17-year-old. The latter had already learned how to maintain interpersonal relationships around them, while the former only had simple likes and dislikes. The class bell was about to ring in 10 minutes. At this time, Aju, who was about to return to the classroom, received a call. The person who called was Gu Ro. Her voice was still very pleasant. Hello, is this Aju? Aju had a small face and frowned. No, I'm hanging up. Gu Ro was speechless. To be honest, Gu Ro was stunned for a moment after she was hung up on. Because she had never thought that Aju would hang up on her the moment she came up. Gu Ro had prepared a lot of words, but they were all choked in the middle of her throat. She couldn't help but make a second call. Aju didn't pick up. Enchanting raised his eyebrows at the side. Gu Ro's eyes gradually darkened as she made the call. Originally, she thought that the other party was just a junior high school student who didn't know anything. She didn't expect that in some aspects she actually underestimated the other party. Her phone kept ringing. Aju didn't pick it up, but Enchanting smiled and tapped on it for her. Gu Ro was about to speak. Enchanting swiped to the left and hung up. Gu Ro was speechless. What the hell was going on? Aju also looked to the side. There was still a white cat on her head. She didn't understand why her second brother would do such a thing. Enchanting's lips curled up. Little sister, remember, driving a person crazy is not to not pick up her call, but to not give the other party a chance to speak after picking up. Of course, after playing 3 times, we can still listen to what she wants to say. Aju nodded cutely. She was really using her second brother's words. Therefore, when Gu Ro called for the 3rd time, she quickly swiped it open. She only heard the other party say the word meme before hanging up again. Gu Ro. Ha. Gu Ro was really a little embarrassed. One had to know that she was a real business child. Compared to the girls who appeared by Bai Juan's side before, not only did she have methods, but she was also born with self-cultivation. She liked Bai Juan. Other than being desperate in her pursuit, a large part of the reason was that she felt that a little girl like Aju was not worthy of Bai Juan at all. However, Gu Ro really did not expect that the other party would continuously hang up on her. Once or twice she could treat it as if she had pressed the wrong button. This time it was a total of 3 times. It was obvious that she had done it on purpose. Gu Ro gripped the white iPhone in her hand tightly, and the expression on her face became ferocious. Gu Ro, what's wrong with you? Beside her stood the girl who had followed her to number 1 high school. Gu Ro only came back to her senses when she heard her friend's words. She adjusted her facial expression and smiled. Nothing. It's just that Bai Juan's sister doesn't really want to pick up my call. That insensible junior high school student. Why do you care about her? One of the girls was very angry. Gu Ro smiled and said, don't be like this. No matter what, she is Gu Juan's sister. Master Li and Shaolin also have to take care of her. I'll give her another explanation. This was Gu Ro's brilliance. She had never been bad about Aju. Every time she always expressed that Aju was still young and insensible. Over time, this kind of thinking would subtly influence everyone's thinking. This was a common method used by businessmen. Gu Ro had been by old Master Gu's side all year round, so this kind of method had become her most normal life. In this way it really seemed that Aju was insensible. Gu Rou was already prepared to be hung up on again. But this time the other party actually picked up. Chapter 1208. Hello. After hearing the voice, Gu Rou was stunned for a moment before she smiled and said, Aju, it's me, your sister Gu Rou. Yes, I know it's you. In other words, I know it's you, so I hung up the phone many times. Gu Rou felt that the breath in her chest was even more suffocating. She took a deep breath and said, Aju, I know you're still angry with me because of what happened today, but there's one thing that you really have to think about seriously. Aju, there's no one else around us now. Ask yourself, how does the Bai family treat you? How does Bai Jun treat you? Everyone grows up day by day. Today you publicly embarrassed your little brother for such a random person who appeared out of nowhere. Have you ever thought about how he would face his good friends and us? I'm not calling to blame you. I just want to tell you that your little brother is not feeling well either. I know that you have a bad temper. After all, you're still young. It's normal that you can't control yourself sometimes. But under such circumstances, you threw a chair at us without saying anything. Aju, to put it bluntly, it's fine for you to do this to us, but the Bai family has raised you for so many years. Bai Jun thinks about you for everything. At the very least, you have to know how to be grateful. Are you done? Aju's eyes were clear. She lowered her head slightly, revealing her furry little head. It's not up to an outsider like you to discuss the matter between me and the Bai family. Gu Rou exclaimed aggrievedly, Aju, I don't mean anything else. I just hope that you can reconcile with your brother as soon as possible. Otherwise, you won't be comfortable living in the Bai family, right? It's not good to be at odds with Bai Jun like this. After all, other than the Bai family, you can only return to the mountains. Enchanting heard all of this. Aju was not 12 years old, so he could not take her away. 12 years was the natal year. Only when the zodiac was counted could one be considered to have reached the Mahayana realm. At that time, Aju would be able to ensure that she would not be eroded by turbidity. No one could replace the righteousness of Bai Jun's military soul. At this moment, no matter how much he wanted to take his sister away, he could not be impulsive. Gu Rou. This person really made him want to kill someone. Since she insisted on coming up, then he shouldn't blame him for interfering in this matter. When Aju was 12 years old, the first thing he wanted to do was to uproot the entire Gu family. However, if Gu Rou had not mentioned it, he would not have thought of this problem. Did these people think that their Aju had no place to go? It wouldn't be a problem to bring them out for half a day. There were some things that Bai Jun could not notice. Then he would give the other party a warning. The Bai family was not Aju's only place. His little sister would also be liked by other people. Enchanting had always been a black-bellied character, so she directly hung up the phone for Aju. Then he chuckled and handed his phone to Aju. Second brother, I have a phone. Aju doesn't understand why her second brother gave her another phone. Enchanting rubbed Aju's head. This phone is not for you. I want you to use my phone to call Bai Jun and tell him that you have to go to the house of the person you like to do your homework after school today. You won't be home until later. Someone you like? Aju's eyes widened. Who? Enchanting pointed at himself and curled his lips into a smile. Me. Aju was speechless. What? Don't you like second brother? Enchanting's smile became even wider. It's still not convenient for you to tell him. Then give the phone to second brother after you dial it. Aju muttered, it doesn't seem right to say that you like someone. What's wrong? Enchanting placed one hand on her sister's shoulder. My little sister is at the age where she should like someone, right? Aju looked at Enchanting seriously. Woolly Buddha said that you can't break the precept of lust. Any woman is a tigress. Enchanting was speechless. He finally knew why there was that email. It was basically a poison test by the temple. A good child even became enlightened later than others. If you like men, it's not considered breaking the precept of lust. Enchanting pulled her hand and placed it on the phone. Compared to returning to the Bai family now, Aju naturally wanted to stay with second brother more. Moreover, she had never done homework or eaten with second brother. So very quickly, Aju dialed the number according to her memory. Bai Jun did not pick up. It was probably because it was an unfamiliar phone number. Aju used her phone to call again. Whose phone is vibrating? In the classroom, Li Hailu took out his phone and looked at it. There was no reaction. He turned around and looked at Bai Juan, who was thinking about something. Bai Juan took out his phone from the desk. He glanced at the caller ID and immediately picked up the call. "Oh. Little brother, you don't have to pick me up from school in the afternoon. I'm going to my friend's house to do my homework. I'll go back later." In the end, Aju didn't say anything about who she liked. Enchanting listened beside her and smiled ambiguously. Bai Juan's fingers paused. "Friend? It's me." Enchanting reached out and took Aju's phone over. After hearing the voice on the other side, Bai Juan frowned heavily. The coldness between his lips was on the verge of erupting. "Enchanting. I really didn't expect young Master Bai to remember other people's names." Enchanting smiled as she said, "Don't worry, I won't do anything to Aju. Although I don't like your group of people, Aju is different. Aju is so cute, I can't wait to like her." Hearing this, Bai Juan's eyes completely turned cold. Li Hailu was very close to Bai Juan, so naturally he could hear Enchanting's last sentence. He subconsciously looked into Bai Juan's eyes. As expected, the hostility in his eyes could destroy everything. Li Hailu subconsciously said, "Fuck." Bai Juan's voice was so deep that it seemed to be able to brew a storm. "Enchanting, I'm warning you, you'd better send Aju back right now or I won't let you off." "Bai Juan, you seem to have made a mistake about one thing." Enchanting laughed softly. "Aju was not kidnapped by me. She willingly followed me. Otherwise you can ask Aju." As she said this, Enchanting returned the phone. At this point it should be enough. Although this was a little angry, if Bai Juan had been more careful and made his surroundings not so complicated, Aju would not have been ostracized. Of course he had to let Bai Juan have a taste of this uncomfortable feeling. Because only through this method could he be sure whether Bai Juan treated Aju as his sister or if there were other feelings. Chapter 1209. If it was really just a younger sister, even if Aju liked him, they would not destroy someone else's relationship just because Aju liked him. A tough melon is not sweet. Although the people in the family were rude and unreasonable, such as father and brother, they still understood the basic principle of not forcing others. Especially when it came to relationships. As long as Bai Juan did not have that intention, their Aju did not have to stick to anyone. When the time came, her family would immediately come over to pick her up. On the Bai family's side, they should be grateful. But there was one thing. If that was really the case, in the future they would avoid letting Aju see Bai Juan again. After all, it was really difficult to forget the feelings of a childhood sweetheart. He did not want to see Aju sink into the memories of her childhood. The future was still very long. From a selfish point of view, as an older brother, Enchanting really did not want to see a scene like today again. Aju was eating alone at the table, while the other side was bustling with noise and excitement. This kind of feeling was the most hurtful. As an older brother, it was difficult for Enchanting not to be angry, but he still smiled on the surface. He said to Aju dotingly, "Aju, Bai Juan suspects that I am abducting you." Hearing this, Aju immediately said, "Little brother, Brother Chinchin is not lying. I am the one who volunteered to go with him. I want to go to his house as a guest." Even through the phone, it was not difficult to tell that Aju was serious when she said this. Bai Juan's fingers clenched tightly. Master Li could not bear to see him like that, so he could only lower his head and say to the phone, "Aju, you've only known that person for a day and you're already saying that you want to go to his house as a guest. Do you know that this is very dangerous? Be good, the world of adults is not as simple as you think. No need." Aju also knew that Master Li was worried about her, so she said in a low voice, "I'm not a child anymore. I know the basics of who is good and who is bad. I'll go home after I finish my homework. Tell little brother that I won't go home for dinner." After saying that, Aju hung up the phone. After all, in that way if she continued to talk she would only hear more bad things about her second brother. She did not like others to say bad things about her second brother. Only she knew how much second brother doted on her. Li Hailu could not believe that Aju hung up the phone just like that. She was never like this in the past. What's more, he wouldn't say that he was going to visit a friend's house. Moreover, this friend could not be anyone else, but he had to choose a person who had provoked Bai Juan as soon as he arrived. What the hell is going on? Li Hailu scratched his head in frustration. Xiao Lin looked at the strands of hair that fell in front of Bai Juan's eyes. From this angle he could not see Bai Juan's expression at all. However, it was precisely because he could not see anything that he seemed even more lonely. Master Li still wanted to say something, but Bai Jun stood up and put on the headphones that were still around his neck. He grabbed his school bag and walked out of the classroom. She couldn't attend the last 2 classes in the afternoon. Xiao Lin immediately followed him. Bai Jun was on the phone and his voice was very deep. Check on Enchanting. Yes, she's a new transfer student from our class. After you find her, send me her address. In number 1 high school, every student would add their home address when they entered the school. It was actually not difficult to know where Enchanting lived. However, no one would have thought that Enchanting would add a fake address on the file. After Bai Jun received this news, the bottle of BLK mineral water in his hand fell to the ground. Lock onto the location of his phone. Bai Jun was really anxious. He was afraid that something would happen to a Jew when he met a person who even had a fake address. However, people also knew that although a Jew was small, there were not many people who could beat her. Unless she was willing, no one could take her away. Bai Jun lowered his eyes. His hands under the white down jacket clenched tighter and tighter until they reached a certain point. Only then did he let go of his hand. The sky gradually darkened. The sudden heavy snow made the entire city look extremely beautiful. Enchanting was taking a Jew to the supermarket. The place where he lived now was actually very close to the school. This school district house had been available for a long time so that if anything happened to a Jew, they could deal with it in time. What do you want to eat? I'll make it for you. Without outsiders, Enchanting looked even gentler. He was clean to begin with. He was clearly a modern person, but he always gave people a feeling that he was young and elegant. Now that he was wearing a pure white sweater, it made his temperament even more outstanding. No matter where he went, he would always be a top-notch school hunk. He pushed the shopping cart in the supermarket and let a Jew sit inside. When he lowered his head and spoke to a Jew, it had already attracted many people's attention. Oh my God, did you hear that handsome guy speak? His voice is so nice. Is he here to push his sister to buy things? I also want to have a brother like him. His sister is also very beautiful. Look at those round black eyes looking back and forth. There's even a cat on her head. Mommy, my heart is about to melt. A Jew heard the voice beside her, but her attention was focused on Chinchin's words. Her big eyes were pleasantly surprised. Second brother, are you making it for me? Yes. Chinchin threw a baby cabbage into the shopping cart and smiled at a Jew. I'll push you forward. Put whatever you want to eat first into the shopping cart. Okay. A Jew's mood, which had been low for the whole day, finally improved. She just sat on the shopping cart. Whatever she pointed at, Chinchin took it. The siblings bought a whole cart of ingredients. For this reason, a Jew seriously expressed her worry. Second brother, I eat more. Will I make you poor? They all said that second brother came to school on a bicycle, so he probably didn't have much money. Thinking about how her second brother always gave her a lot of pocket money every year for so many years, a Jew felt more and more that she had dragged her second brother down. When Chinchin heard his sister's words, he couldn't help but laugh softly. Don't worry, the money on second brother's card is enough for you to eat for the rest of your life. What else do you want? No. A Jew had always been a girl who knew how to save money. However, as her brother, Chinchin obviously hadn't bought enough. It wasn't easy for him to take his sister shopping. Even if they went to the supermarket, they still bought and bought. A Jew stood obediently to the side. Chinchin saw the plush ears hanging in the supermarket. Without thinking, he took them off and put them on a Jew's head. Do you like this? I like it. A Jew nodded at the mirror. She looked extremely cute. Chapter 12:10. Chinchin was also happy to see this. Since she was already here and it was winter, she might as well buy all the equipment that she needed to buy for a Jew. Fluffy ears, cotton gloves with tiger claws and stacks of masks. The gloves and ears were all put on in the supermarket. A Jew was wearing a school uniform, and with these things she looked like a cosplayer who had just come down from a comic exhibition. She was beautiful and cute. That exquisite little face was already a plus point. Now that she was sitting on the back seat of the bicycle with a lot of things in her arms, she attracted a lot of people to watch. Chinchin sat in front with a faint smile. She turned around and fixed a Jew's crooked cat ears before stepping on the stirrups. It was just a very ordinary bicycle, but because the person riding it was Chinchin, the scene was surprisingly beautiful. The pure white sweater matched his face that was stunning no matter when you looked at it. Snowflakes fell on his black hair and the clean smile on his face was like the sun, hard to fade. Since they were near the school, of course they would be seen by others. When the students walked out of the school gate in their school uniforms, they all stretched out their hands. Isn't that the handsome senior who just transferred here? Who's behind him? His sister. What sister? That's the sister of School Beau Bai. Ah? Isn't this handsome guy at odds with School Beau Bai? I'm not sure, but don't you think that these two people are a good match? Look at their eyes, they're full of pink. For a moment rumors spread throughout the entire campus like water waves. Shaolin was among that group of people, but unfortunately he walked out too late and only had time to see Aju's back. Li Hailu was furious. Tell me, what does this Hellion Qingchen mean? Did she deliberately bring Aju around the school gate? Aju too, why did she get on his car? Shaolin did not respond to him. He took out his phone and called Bai Juan without thinking. Hello, I saw Aju. You don't have to look for her. She is indeed fine. Shaolin paused for a moment before saying, she's with Hellion Qingchen. They're in Hellion Qingchen's car. They probably went to her house. The two of them bought a lot of things. There was suddenly no sound from Bai Juan's side. Less than 2 seconds later, Shaolin heard the beep of the disconnect. The more Li Hailu thought about this matter, the more sullen he felt. Hellion Qingchen's address couldn't be found. Bai Juan thought that Aju was in danger, but he didn't expect the result to be like this. He must be feeling bad now. He's in the Bai family now. There's a guest at home. Shaolin carried his backpack and glanced behind him. He did not say much and only said, let's go over too. Li Hailu nodded. That's all we can do for now. The guest of the Bai family was none other than Gu Rou, or Old Master Gu. It would be Bai Juan's birthday in 2 days. Of course, the coming-of-age ceremony of the Bai family's only grandson was attended by many people from the upper class. The Bai and Gu families were discussing how to make Bai Juan's birthday party low-key and not lose face. Old Master Bai meant that the children were still in school, so they should not be too extravagant and wasteful. They should not let these things distract them. After all, the exam was coming. But even if that was the case, it wouldn't really be that simple to carry out. After all, Bai Juan's birthday was not his birthday alone. It was the exchange of power in the entire Bai family, so they could not be careless anywhere. But it was obvious that Bai Juan's mind was not on this today. Old Master Gu stopped and smiled. Bai Juan, the exam is coming soon. I'm a little tired from studying these few days. If you're tired, go and rest first. Let my girl accompany you. She's the best at making people happy. No need. Thank you, Grandpa Gu. Bai Juan stood up as he spoke. Grandpa, I'm going out for a while. Old Master Bai frowned. You're still going out at this time? I'm going to pick up Aju. Bai Juan lowered his head and put on his coat. He did not care about how heavy the snow was outside and wanted to rush out. Old Master Bai called someone to stop him and walked over with his dragon-headed walking stick. There are guests at home. If Aju wants to come back, she will call you. I've taught you since you were young that you have to know your limits when you do things. Now we're discussing your birthday, not someone else's. You can leave after you're done talking. Gu Rou also walked over at this time as if she wanted to help him out. Grandpa Bai Juan is also worried about Aju, but it should be fine. I heard that Aju is with a friend and will come back sooner or later. When Li Hailu and the others pushed open the door and walked in, they heard this sentence. Gu Rou gave him a look, indicating for him to stop Bai Juan and not make things more complicated. It was not that Li Hailu and Shaolin did not want Bai Juan to go, but they knew that Bai Juan was not in the right state. Moreover, where could they find him? The addresses left were all fake and the phone's GPS could not be set. The strangest thing was that even the tracker on Aju's phone had lost its response. A few juniors pulled Bai Juan and brought him upstairs. Originally, the 3 of them did not want to bring Gu Rou along. Gu Rou stuck out her tongue helplessly and said, I have no choice. My grandfather asked me to come up and take a look. With such an excuse, they could not chase him away. Gu Rou was very smart. He did not talk to Bai Juan. Instead, she asked Li Hailu in a low voice, Hailu, I heard from my classmates that Aju followed that transfer student home. Could this be true? Li Hailu did not say anything. Gu Rou let out a long sigh. She's too young. She doesn't know that her family will worry about her. When she comes back later, don't scold her. I'm worried that she will have reverse psychology. The more we scold her, the closer she will get to that transfer student. Li Hailu clenched his fists. He really did not understand how things turned out like this. The snow was still falling outside. The wind hit the glass, making a sound again and again. In the clean and bright semi-open kitchen, Enchanting cut the diced eggplant and crushed the tomatoes. With a crash, she put them into the pot. When the fragrance filled the air, the adorable Aju went over. She was in charge of getting the seasoning for her second brother. Enchanting used her chopsticks to pick up a piece of diced eggplant and put it in Aju's mouth. Then she asked her to scoop the rice herself. Aju ran. She took the chopsticks one moment and the rice cooker the next. She did not rest for a moment. When the 4 dishes were ready, the 2 siblings sat down. Aju first helped her brother scoop the rice. Then she picked up her big bowl and buried her head in it. Enchanting did not move her chopsticks. Instead, she took out her phone and snapped a picture of her. In the photo, Aju still had furry ears. When she raised her head, her big eyes were filled with confusion. That bowl was even bigger than her face. It was the embodiment of perfect cuteness. Chapter 12:11. You don't look good. You look like a big foodie. This was Aju's evaluation of herself. During this time, she did not forget to continue feeding herself. Her cheeks were puffed up like a little hamster and her eating style was very cute. Enchanting smiled and reached out to put his hand behind Aju. He turned the camera to selfie mode and then with a click, another one was taken. But this time it was a group photo of the 2 of them. In the group photo, Aju was like a kitten narrowing her eyes as she ate. In order to cooperate with her, Enchanting narrowed his left eye handsomely. The black earrings were very eye-catching. In addition, the phone had its own photo special effects. The siblings had 2 cat ears on their heads. It was really very beautiful. Even through the screen, one could see the youthful and sweet aura that was overflowing from it. Taking a selfie with her brother was something that Aju had never done before. Enchanting doted on her. Only Aju could pull his face and make him make a series of funny expressions. All of these were taken on Aju's phone. Therefore, even when she returned to the Bai family, Aju was worried that her phone would disappear. Because her second brother had also said that he could only stay by her side for 7 days. Aju was still happy. She knew that her brothers could not get close to her and were worried that they would affect her. She was already very satisfied to be able to be together for 7 days. Enchanting stood outside the courtyard and watched Aju enter. He did not ask anyone to forge an identity for him. Even if he entered the Bai family now, it would not be a problem, but it was not the time yet. Aju returned to the Bai family alone. When she pushed open the door of the Bai family, it was very lively inside. It was as if they were having a meal. From afar, she could hear a series of light laughter. Today Aju is not here. I can finally eat meat in the Bai family. As expected of Auntie Wang's cooking. It smells good. The thick smell of meat in the living room was indeed very pleasant to others. But for Aju, it was really not easy to accept. She subconsciously took a step back, thinking that if she wanted to eat in the future, she would eat at school or eat with her second brother these few days. In the Bai family, it was nothing in the past. Now she should feel that it was somewhat inconvenient to be worried about her vegetarian diet. Yes. In the future, she would eat at second brother's place. Since second brother was no longer around, they could eat in the school cafeteria or eat the crepes sold at the school entrance. The crepes were cheap and delicious. As Aju thought about it, she nodded to herself. She was still holding a pile of things in her arms. Although the smell of meat didn't make her nauseous, she still felt a little conflicted. Recalling the mask that her second brother had bought for her, the child cleverly unwrapped one and put it on her face. Then she lowered her head and began to change her slippers. Perhaps the people in the living room were too engrossed in their conversation, so no one noticed Aju's return. It was Vice Commander Zhang who came in to deliver something. When he saw Aju, he was stunned. "Miss, young master has been looking for you. You're finally back." Before Vice Commander Zhang could finish his sentence, Bai Jun strode over from the living room. His chest was heaving and his clear black and white eyes were looking at Aju, who was standing in front of him. Shaolin, Li Hailu and Gu Rou walked out as well. Old Master Gu and Old Master Bai were from the older generation. They did not move and were still drinking tea in the living room. Aju was holding a lot of things in her arms. The gloves, mask, and the pair of cat ears on her head were obviously newly bought. Gu Rou immediately laughed. Look, you guys are still worried about a Jew. It seems that the transfer student treats a Jew well. He even bought so many things for a Jew. A Jew ignored her. She only raised her eyes and said to Bai Juan, I'm going upstairs. She carried her things and walked towards the stairs. The little white cat followed behind her obediently. Bai Juan's clenched hands loosened and loosened. Finally, he took a step forward and pulled her back. His voice was very deep and sounded a little hoarse. Have you eaten? If you haven't, I'll go make something for you. There's no need. I've eaten. Through the mask, a Jew's voice sounded even more formal and polite. Bai Juan did feel something at that moment. For the past 2 days he had always felt that something was wrong. That was politeness. She was clearly still a very obedient person, but she was no longer the Jew who liked to stick to him. She had actually learned to be polite in front of him. When Bai Juan thought of this, his eyes suddenly trembled. Even his heart also felt a painful stuffiness. He knew a Jew better than anyone else. Even Gu Qing, who had appeared before, had not made Bai Juan feel such a strong sense of uneasiness. Because no matter what Gu Qing gave a Jew had never accepted it. A Jew was always very polite to outsiders. She would not easily accept anyone's things. Other than these brothers who had grown up with her, she would return whatever others gave her even if she accepted it. But today the things she was holding in her hands all showed that the person who bought her these things was special to her. As long as he thought of these 3 words, Bai Juan felt as if even breathing had become 100 times more uncomfortable. In the end, old Master Bai was still worried. He walked over and picked a Jew up with a smile before saying, Why is little a Jew so cute today? You even bought a pair of cat ears? It was Brother Qingchen who bought it for me. A Jew was really the best in everything. She immediately took out her phone and showed it to old Master Bai. Grandpa Bai, look at this. This is Brother Qingchen. Isn't he very good looking? A Jew definitely took after her big brother, Bailey Shangxie. To put it simply, Bailey Shangxie was a maniac who showed off his brother, and a Jew was a maniac who showed off her brother. In short, both the brother and sister were showing off Hellion Qingchen. Old Master Bai lowered his head and looked at the photo. He could not help but feel a little absent-minded. It was strange. Why did this youth look a little familiar? What's his surname? Old Master Bai asked. A Jew said, Hellion. His name is Hellion Qingchen. Speaking of which, she also liked her second brother's name very much. She just did not know who gave her name. Why was she called Jiu? To be honest, she felt that he was too lazy to give her a name. He casually gave her a number, and it was a very meaningless number. In the 8 hells of the demon world, glaciers, snow, and spider lilies bloomed. Bailey Jiaju's slender fingers supported his lower jaw as he sat on the demon's throne that was filled with corpses. His sudden movement caused the demons who were still swimming like goldfish below to raise their heads in unison. Fuck, what was going on? The emperor actually sneezed? The fire Qilin also stood at the side, swinging its flaming tail. After hesitating for a long time, it said, Master, what are you doing? Could it be that you missed the princess consort? Bailey Jiaju's voice was very faint as he gave it 2 words. The fire Qilin was speechless. You, a great demon who had lived for thousands of years, would catch a cold? Who are you lying to? Chapter 12:12. Why? Is it strange that I caught a cold? Baligaju stood up. His half-opened black robe brushed across the ground, and a terrifying demonic aura greeted him. The fire Qilin immediately shook its head. The group of demons also shook their heads. The demon world was in turmoil. Baligaju did not look at them. He walked into the hell of wisdom. With every step he took, black feathers would fall. This was indeed a kingdom of death. Blue bouquets in a river that spread out. Countless undead floated on it. At the end of the river was an ancient divine beast called Tunshin. It seemed to have fallen asleep. It just lay by the river and lowered its tail into the river. Everything in the demon world seemed to be not to be trifled with. However, some people did not know that she had really provoked someone she should not have provoked. 3,000 feet above, the world was noisy. In the Bai family's hall, a Jew was still looking at her phone with old Master Bai. Bai Juan and the others were standing at the side. Of course, they also saw the group photo inside. In the photo, a Jew was being held in Hellion Qingchen's arms. Both of them had special effects. There was a red dot on their noses, 3 beards on their faces and a pair of pink and white ears on their heads. They looked like 2 cats. Not only would Enchanting's appearance in the photo not diminish his temperament, but it would also make him appear more agile and handsome. Even Gu could not help but chuckle and say, "This transfer student is really good-looking." Bai Juan clenched his hands tightly and looked at Aju, who treated the photo in the phone as a treasure. He did not say anything. Old Master Bai patted Aju's head. "If Aju is not sleepy, don't go up first. We are talking about your little brother's birthday party. You should also listen. When someone comes, Grandpa Bai is afraid that he won't be able to take care of you." Aju nodded and sat down at the side. She was still wearing a mask, but she looked obedient. In fact, Aju had always been sensible. This was not because of her personality, but because of her upbringing since she was young. As long as the guest didn't choke her, she wouldn't embarrass him. Even if she didn't like this person, she understood that this was the Bai family after all. The Bai family wanted to befriend someone, so she couldn't ruin their relationship just because she didn't like him. Old Master Bai thought that since Aju had returned, that Brat's heart should be able to settle down. He took advantage of the time to talk about some details of the birthday banquet. Aju listened attentively. In the middle there would be a segment where the little brothers and friends gathered to play. They were all young men and women between the ages of 17, 18 and 20. It should not be appropriate for her to go. Old Master Gu was still discussing with Old Master Bai and felt that this plan was not bad. Aju didn't say anything either. She secretly decided that after the birthday party was over, she would give the gifts she had bought to her little brother. After Old Master Gu and Old Master Bai finished discussing, they brought Bai Juan to the study. It seemed that the Gu family was going to stay at the Bai family's house for the night. Aju lowered her head and packed her things. She also planned to go back to her room. However, Gu spoke at this moment. "It's indeed not bad to celebrate alone, but Aju is still young, so it's not convenient for her to follow us. Aju, why don't you go and tell your brother to cancel the celebration alone? It doesn't matter if we play or not. The most important thing is that you have to be happy. Don't get into a fight with your brother on your birthday." "I won't." Aju raised her eyes and looked at Gu. Her eyes were very clear, as if she could see through everything. Li Hailu was not thinking about whether to celebrate alone or not. It was about what happened today. "Aju, you and Enchanting just left like that. Have you considered Bai Juan's feelings?" Aju turned her body to the side. She was still wearing a mask on her face. Facing these questions, she did not say anything. She just buried her head and put the furry cat claw gloves into her school bag. Li Hailu's voice became low. "Bai Juan really dotes on you too much." "Hailu." Shaolin grabbed Li Hailu's arm. Li Hailu struggled. "Let go of me. I have to tell Aju. You guys are with your friends and I'm with my friends. What's so difficult about this?" Aju's gaze indifferently interrupted Li Hailu's words. "I won't be like you guys and deny a person just because of a few words from others. I know very well who is really good to me." Li Hailu really did not expect Aju to talk to him like this. Her small face was still cute, but the look in her eyes was different. Li Hailu scratched his hair in frustration. "Aju, I didn't mean to blame you. I was anxious. Anxious, do you understand?" "I understand." Aju thought for a moment and reached out her hand. She tiptoed and touched Li Hailu's head. Li Hailu was also worried that if he could not explain it clearly, Aju would ignore him. He loved Aju very much. It was because he loved Aju very much that he saw her abandon her brothers for another person who appeared out of nowhere. That was why Li Hailu was so angry. However, he did not know that the key problem was not this. "Alright, since the misunderstanding has been resolved, everyone shouldn't be so distressed." Gu smiled faintly at the side. "Let's talk about the birthday party. When the time comes, there will be a lot of people. Originally, it was best to do a Western-style buffet, but there will be meat in every dish. If Aju really can't eat meat here, I'll tell Grandpa Bai and we'll change it to something else. How about it?" Although Western-style food was very high class, Aju could not eat it. There was nothing she could do. Aju turned her head and looked at the person in front of her who was smiling brightly. She had told herself many times that she had to get along well with her little brother's girlfriend. After all, her little brother could not be her little brother alone. Although it was very uncomfortable to say such things, so much so that she would still feel a little sad at night. But since her little brother had chosen this person, she would give them at least some respect. But it was obvious that this person did not need her respect. However, she also knew very well that some people could not always accommodate her. When she first entered the door, she learned that they all wanted to eat meat. Aju did not understand. She had never forced anyone to eat vegetarian with her. Why did Gu Rou say that everyone was taking care of her as long as she was happy? It sounded like she was being unreasonable. Don't worry about me. Aju put her backpack on her shoulder. You can do whatever you want at the birthday party. After saying that, she did not stop and went straight upstairs. Chapter 12-13. After walking to the room, Aju bent her small body and took out all the gifts she had bought for Baijuan. Then she counted them there. After counting them, she put them back where they were. She did not know why, but she had clearly grown up. But at this moment she really missed her mother and brothers. Aju opened the scripture and read a paragraph. Then she stared at her phone in a daze for a while. On the screen was the scene of her second brother hugging her and meowing like a cat. Aju looked at it and laughed. Her actions were very cute as she kissed the phone. Then she whispered, "Second brother, see you tomorrow." It was probably because she was too tired from playing with Enchanting today. They went shopping, bought things and took photos. Aju had not gone to the bathroom to wash up yet. She fell asleep on the desk just like that. The faint light shone down and shone on her face. It was very clean and fair, as if even the tiny hair on her face could be seen clearly. When Baijuan pushed the door open and entered, this was the scene he saw. Following that, his footsteps could not help but slow down a lot in order not to disturb Aju. Baijuan did not take a shower either. When he sat in the study and listened to his grandfather and the others talk, he was also absent-minded. It was not until he saw the person lying in the room that his heart began to slowly calm down. Baijuan was wearing a light blue sweater. Such clothes had always been very picky, but when he wore it he did not feel out of place at all. Instead, it made him look even more handsome and noble. He picked up his cotton jacket and walked to Aju's side without batting an eyelid. He put it on the child's shoulder. Then he squatted down and raised his head to look at the little face that was sleeping soundly. He reached out and wiped away the dirt on her face. Then he curled his lips into a smile. Aju had a problem when she was asleep, which was that she liked to chant scriptures. When she was young, Baijuan would often tease her with this matter. Looking at her small mouth constantly moving and her cheeks bulging, she was like a little squirrel. She was very cute. It was the same now. Baijuan poked Aju's pear-blossom dimples with his finger and curled his lips again. Then he bent down with a faint smile and wanted to carry her up. Just as he exerted force, he realized that she was still holding a phone in her other hand. The phone was not locked and the person on the screen was Enchanting. Baijuan's figure suddenly stopped, and his hand unconsciously exerted force. He knew very well what it was like to like someone. No matter what, he wanted to see that person, that small figure. He recalled the days when the two of them were together when they were young. At that time, Aju would always obediently follow by his side. Her small hand tugged at his clothes and the other hand held a steamed bun. When did he start to change? What's so good about Enchanting? Why do you value her so much? Aju, tell me, why can't I? Baijuan lowered his eyes to look at the person he had placed on the bed. His voice was so low that it seemed to be filled with infinite wetness. His black hair fell down and covered his eyes. The next day when Aju woke up, there was no one by her side. Someone covered her with a blanket. Aju didn't need to think to know that it was the little brother who covered her. She rolled up, changed into her school uniform and shoes, carried her school bag and went downstairs. Other than Gu Qing, the rest of the Gu family were sitting at the dining table, chatting and laughing. Before Aju walked over, she heard Gu Rou say to Auntie Wang, "Auntie Wang, the shrimp wonton you made is really delicious. There's also the beef patty. It's crispy on the outside and soft on the inside. The feeling of biting it is super good. I used to only like Western food. It seems that I have to try more Chinese food in the future, provided that these are all made by Auntie Wang." Auntie Wang smiled and said, "Western food is not as delicious as Chinese food. The more you eat, the more delicious it is. Miss Gu, you eat first. I'll go and fish out the noodles and use beef as toppings. Young master likes to eat this." "Auntie Wang, when we weren't around in the past, did Baijuan not eat meat?" Gu Rou asked indirectly. Auntie Wong was also unintentional. That's right. Young Master dotes on Mississippi. It's been a long time since meat dishes appeared on this table. Bai Jun is really working hard. He's always accommodating another person. Gu Rou raised her eyebrows. Auntie Wong smiled. When these two people live together, one will definitely accommodate the other. Moreover, young master is very happy. Auntie Wong is right. Bai Jun has always been good to Aju. After all, she is his younger sister. After Gu Rou said this, she scooped up another wonton and ate it. I want to eat another bowl. It's too delicious. Listening to this conversation, Aju stood at the stairs and paused for a moment before changing her direction. She couldn't smell such a big meat smell. She might as well go to the school gate for breakfast. She wore cat ears on her head and cat claw gloves on her hands. Aju's outfit was undoubtedly very eye-catching. In addition, there was a white cat lying on her shoulder. In the morning, the vicinity of the school was especially lively. There was a lot of food to eat and the line was like a street. Aju looked at this, asked for a little, looked at that and asked for a little more. In the end, she thought for a while and asked for 10 steamed buns and cabbage that she thought were the best. Everyone, don't misunderstand. These 10 were not for her to eat. She wanted to buy them for Helly and Qingchen. Aju knew very well that the people at home could not get close to her, so the only person who could come to the school was definitely her second brother. Yesterday when she was eating, she had noticed that other than her second brother, there was not even a cook at home. In these 7 days she had to help her eldest brother take good care of her second brother. Therefore, in a short while, under the gaze of the entire school, Aju carried a large pile of breakfast to the high school section of number 1 high school. On the other side, the lively Bai family. After taking a shower, Bai Jun changed into his school uniform and went downstairs. He carried his black school bag on one shoulder and walked towards the living room. Gu Rou and the 2 old men were sitting at the dining table, but Aju was not there. Where's Aju? Bai Jun asked Auntie Wong as he took a sip of the milk on the dining table. Auntie Wong did not say anything. Gu Rou chuckled and said, she should have left early. I just saw her go out. She didn't even eat breakfast? Bai Jun looked at the vegetable bun that had not even been touched. He then looked at the other plate and frowned. The pie made today is filled with meat? Auntie Wong knew what the young master meant. She quickly walked over and said, Old Master Gu and Miss Gu have just returned from abroad. They are not used to eating Chinese vegetarian food. Bai Jun heard this and did not say anything else. He put his school bag on his left shoulder. Gu Rou immediately stood up. Bai Jun, Auntie Wong made your favorite beef noodles. You can leave after you finish eating. I'll leave with you. Old Master Gu heard his granddaughter's words and looked over with a smile. Gu Rou still had a smile on her face and her eyes were jumping with mischief. She knew that with her grandfather watching by the side, Bai Jun would not reject her. Chapter 12-14. However, she was still wrong. Bai Jun turned around and did not even look at her. His tone was very cold. Adjutant Zhang, go and drive the car over and send Miss Gu away. I'll take the Li family's car to school. Also, don't let others make decisions for me on what to eat for breakfast in the future. After saying that, Bai Jun did not say anything else. He picked up his school bag and walked out of the Bai family's house. Adjutant Zhang was stunned for a moment before he reacted. Yes. Gu Rou's expression was a little ugly. Old Master Bai frowned. When did this grandson of his become so unruly? This was obviously embarrassing the Gu family. Old Master Gu did not care about what to eat. He only felt that Bai Jun seemed to be a little angry. In order to ease the atmosphere, he teased his granddaughter. Look at you. You're being despised for chasing after him too closely. Gu Rou held the bamboo chopsticks in her hand and smiled. Grandfather, what are you talking about? I just wanted to get a ride on Bai Jun's car. Now that I have a car, it's the same for me to go to school myself. Although she said this, Gu Rou was very unconvinced in her heart. She did not expect that Bai Jun would not even care about their relationship on the surface for that child. This did not seem like something he should do. However, it did not matter. He was not in a hurry. Even in the cold, she had the confidence to warm him up. On the other side, in the high school section of number 1 high school, 3rd year class A. The people walking back and forth in the corridor of the stairs were all 3rd year high school students who were about to take the exam. They held advanced mathematics books in one hand and bought breakfast in the other. They walked very quickly. Under normal circumstances, 2 or 3 people walked together. Especially when it was almost time for the exam, they would basically do everything together with their good friends. The girls were wearing school uniforms and carrying their school bags. When they walked to the door of the class, they suddenly stopped. It was not for anything else, but because there was someone leaning against the railing who was not supposed to be here. That person was none other than little Aju, who was carrying a big pile of breakfast. She was still dressed the same as in the morning. She stood there cutely. Whenever a person walked over, she would raise her big eyes to take a look. Even the white cat on her head would follow her movements. When some people saw the scene, they were really so cute that they immediately took out their phones to take photos and post them on their WeChat moments. Does your school have cute things from number 1 high school? The other schools really didn't have it. Some of the seniors in the 3rd year of high school really liked little Aju. In their hearts, Aju was much more handsome than many boys. For example, the last time she carried a suitcase. Therefore, when Aju stood there, the senior sisters all surrounded her. Aju, are you here to look for Colonel Bai? Sisters will help you call them now. Her skin was even fairer up close. I really want to pinch it. Wearing cat paw gloves was too cute. Aju hugged the pile of breakfast and shook her head. No, I'm waiting for Brother Qingchen. I looked through the classroom just now, but he wasn't inside. Brother Qingchen? Who is it? Some people were still in a daze. The other girl exclaimed, it's that handsome transfer student. Only then did people realize that the handsome transfer student was not called a transfer student, but Hellion Qingchen. Wait for him. The female seniors looked at each other. Did they hear wrongly? However, Aju nodded her head and continued to stand there waiting like a small mushroom. The handsome transfer student, oh no, I mean Hellion Qingchen. He seems to have come very late. The female seniors said to Aju, why don't you wait in the classroom with us? Yes, enter the classroom. Some of the top students had no resistance to Aju at all and gave the person who suggested it a big thumbs up. Just like that, Aju was pushed into Class A's classroom by a group of fangirls. Someone was still introducing to Aju. Aju, that's Colonel Bai's seat. We just arranged a table. Do you want to sit over there? Aju remembered the conversation at the Bai family today. She paused and asked, where's Brother Qingchen's seat? That person was stunned at first, then pointed to the seat by the window on the far right. Aju looked there and then walked over with her things in her arms. She tilted her head and bent her small body to look inside. There was nothing in the desk, not even a book. Why didn't second brother bring a book to class? It seemed that he definitely did not listen to the teacher seriously. Aju muttered and lowered her head. She was about to put all the breakfast on the desk. Bai Juan, Li Hailu and the others walked in. The moment they saw Aju, all 3 of them paused for a moment. Aju had also finished her breakfast. She raised her head without any defense and met Bai Juan's incomparably deep gaze. Li Hailu frowned. Hellion Qingchen's desk? It was already very obvious what Aju was doing. Every one of them had eyes. Bai Juan looked at the breakfast that was already sharp. His fingers that were holding the school bag tightly gripped it one by one. Even his smooth joints were a little white from the grip. When he went out, he was still worried that she would be hungry because she had not eaten. He did not expect that. In fact, she did not need him to worry at all. Not only did she know how to eat, but she also learned to bring breakfast to people other than him. Bai Juan once again realized how special Hellion Qingchen was in Aju's heart. The shock in Li Hailu's eyes was so obvious that even Shaolin frowned and looked at Aju. Aju did not have much of a reaction. She lifted her school bag. Aju, you really? Li Hailu was very angry. Do you like her that much? Shaolin reached out and pulled Li Hailu back. Hailu. No. This child has to be taught. She doesn't know anything at all. She always does things her own way. She doesn't care if others will make things difficult for her. The things that happened before were all small matters. We can all listen to her. But today we can't do it this time. Li Hailu was really sad. He did not understand why Aju would go against them for an outsider. She can be good to anyone, but she has to be good to Hellion Qingchen. Aju opened her mouth to interrupt him. Her voice was serious. That's right. I just like Brother Qingchen. Even if I make things difficult for you, this fact can't be changed. So you just think that I'm insensible. After saying that, Aju was about to walk out of the classroom with the little white cat on her head. Bai Juan turned around and pulled her back. He lowered his eyes and said in a deep voice, "Why did you leave without waiting for me to eat breakfast?" Aju did not want to talk about meat and vegetables. If she said it, it would seem that others would have to accommodate her. She would only make things difficult for others. However, she did not want to lie, so she shook her head. Chapter 12:15. Baizhuan no longer had the strength to ask anything else. After she said that she liked Enchanting, no matter what the result was, it was meaningless, wasn't it? He had always been on guard against Guqing. He even felt that Aju would like someone of the same age as him. But now, Baizhuan knew that the person who could really take Aju away from him was not Guqing. When Enchanting walked into the classroom with her school bag on one shoulder, Aju had already left. He was dressed very refreshingly. Even though it was snowing, it did not affect his temperament. When he saw the desk that was filled with breakfast, he yawned lazily and smiled. This was perhaps the tacit understanding between the siblings. Enchanting did not need to think to know who bought these food. After sitting down, she opened the plastic bag. There were a total of 10 steamed buns and vegetables inside. It seemed that her little sister had equated her appetite with hers. This was the rhythm of feeding a pig. However, for Enchanting, as long as it was something bought by her little sister, she would finish it no matter how full she was. Therefore, as her brother, Enchanting did not even think about it. She opened her mouth and took a big bite of the steamed bun. Her left cheek was bulged by something and it was very eye-catching. "Oh my God, I didn't expect him to be so handsome even when eating. Can you even smile when eating steamed buns? What should I do? When I see him eat, I feel that even the steamed buns are good-looking." Enchanting could indeed give people such an effect. He smiled faintly as he held the steamed bun in one hand and typed with the other. He sent a WeChat message to Aju. His side profile looked so handsome that people really could not get used to it. Li Hailu heard the surrounding sounds and threw the ballpoint pen on the table. He turned around and looked at Enchanting. The dissatisfaction in his heart had reached its peak. Enchanting smiled faintly. She took another steamed bun and ate it slowly. She knew that not only was Li Hailu looking at her but also Baizhuan. Enchanting curved his thin lips. The effect was not bad. All in all, it was a beautiful morning. Although Enchanting was scolded by the teacher because she didn't take her first class to school, it didn't affect her mood. Aju's deskmate was different. Guqing supported himself with his arms and stood in front of Aju with his long legs. It was more or less embarrassing. "Little Bean, you've never brought me breakfast before." When he said this, Guqing was smiling, but there was no happiness in his eyes at all. Aju was also direct. "Give me your Alaskan sled dog and I'll buy you breakfast." "Little Bean, I didn't expect you to know how to negotiate with others." Guqing couldn't help but laugh. "But you're really something. It's obvious that your brother and that Enchanting don't see eye to eye. Why are you still so nice to him? No wonder even my cousin is angry. Speaking of which, your brother and my cousin are developing quite quickly. Today when I went to school, I even saw your family's car at the entrance of second high school. Now that my cousin is living in your house, it seems that Grandpa and Grandpa are very optimistic about the two of them." Aju didn't say anything. Instead, she turned on her phone and looked at the WeChat message her second brother had sent her. It was a selfie of him eating a steamed bun and there were 2 words attached: "Delicious." Aju suddenly felt that no matter what Guqing said, she would not feel uncomfortable in her heart. Guqing also saw the photo. For some reason he actually felt a little irritated. Why does he even want to send you a WeChat message for a meal? Aju ignored him. Guqing felt that he had never had so much patience with anyone before. "Oh right, tomorrow is your brother's birthday. I heard from my cousin that there will be a lot of people invited. The group of high school students will have a party alone. When the time comes, you can be with me. You're too young and your brother has to worry about whether he will teach you bad things. Moreover." At this point Guqing paused. "The 2 elders seem to have the intention to set the engagement between my cousin and your brother. When the time comes, the one who will be toasting with Baizhuan will definitely be my cousin. With so many adults, it's not convenient for Baizhuan to bring you along." Engagement? Aju's fingers that were replying to the message stopped. How could she forget? Little brother was not like her. He could get married. Aju had never thought about what it would be like for little brother to get married. However, she knew very well that little brother had always wanted a family. He had a family after getting married. However, it seemed that she could not accompany little brother anymore. Because she could imagine that in the near future, similar problems like vegetarian dishes and meat dishes would keep happening. At that time it would be her fault for being insensible again. He did not like that. Aju suddenly thought of the birthday gifts that she had prepared a long time ago. There was also the problem of the dishes that they had discussed for the birthday party. Since it was so difficult, she would not participate. Just like today's breakfast, she could go to second brother for breakfast in the future. Yes, there was also lunch and dinner. Thinking of this, her chest did not feel so stuffy anymore. After Aju made up her mind, she deleted the WeChat message that she had already edited word by word. Then she pressed the phone screen with her fingers. Second brother, I want to sleep with you tomorrow. Enchanting looked at the message on her phone and frowned. Then she replied seriously, you can stay at my place until 12 o'clock. After 12 o'clock I have to send you back to the Bai family. Then I'll stay until 12 o'clock. Aju muttered as she typed, at noon we have to eat together and at night too. Enchanting smiled and replied with 3 words, of course. Aju was happy and began to think about what to eat for lunch. Ordinary people could not outrun Aju. As long as Aju ate in school, she would always be the first to appear at the selection window. It was the same today. The teacher in the 3rd year of high school was still emphasizing the key points to remember today and the range of questions that would be tested in the college entrance examination over the years. The students in the middle school had already walked out of the classroom quickly. Everyone's common goal was the cafeteria. There were also people who ate outside the school and there were also people who ordered takeout, but most people still chose to eat in school. After all, the food in number 1 high school was famous in the education world. It was delicious and cheap and there were many kinds of food. Aju displayed her usual style, which was to buy as much as she could. She knew that her second brother loved to eat white rice like her, so she directly brought 6 boxes of rice and a lot of fried dishes. There were a total of 10 lunch boxes, all of which were carried by her. These lunch boxes would definitely be difficult for others to carry, but for Aju there was no pressure at all. During this time she did not forget to stop and help the weak senior sister carry a kettle. Chapter 12-16. The 3rd year high school students were finally done with their classes. Aju did not meet Bai Juan and the others who were walking out from the other side. She was waiting outside with a lunchbox in her hand. Her small face was fierce and she looked serious and cute. When her big eyes saw Enchanting walking out, they immediately lit up. Enchanting had just finished eating 10 steamed buns and was still full. However, when she saw that her sister was very happy, her originally good-looking face revealed a bright smile that could almost make people's hearts beat faster. The students at the side turned into fangirls in minutes. They could not help but reach out to hold their faces. I want to change sides. I want to choose my Prince Charming again. I originally thought that I was very happy to see Bai Juan in Class A, but I didn't expect that there would be an even happier existence. Oh my god, did you see him not smiling for a minute? My heart, it's beating so fast. Enchanting walked past these students and walked towards her little sister. She reached out her hand and touched Aju's head. The intimate action was almost subconscious. Aju liked to be touched by her second brother the most. Following that, her eyes also smiled. The way she tilted her little head really looked like a little tiger. However, she was still a little troubled. I originally wanted to buy 5 more steamed buns, but I didn't have time to help people carry water. If I had known earlier, I would have carried them over my head. What if these things are not enough to eat? Enchanting glanced at the 10 lunch boxes and coughed lightly. Good girl, it's enough. Really? Aju raised her head and said very seriously, second brother, you don't have to save money for me. I've kept the pocket money you've given me all these years. I can buy more. Enchanting immediately said, it's really enough. I'm definitely not saving money. He knew that his family members always had a special appetite when they were growing up. Almost every time his brother saw someone, he wanted to tear them apart and eat them. This was a problem since he was young. He was still considered normal. It was only when he was in junior high school that he started to act up. Speaking of which, Aju also took after her brother in this aspect. Although one ate people and was purely carnivorous, the other ate grains and was purely vegetarian. But they could eat so much. Indeed, he didn't have enough money to raise them. This time Enchanting had another motivation to earn money. In the future she would have to accept more missions. Otherwise, how would she be able to support her brother and sister? Aju did not know what her second brother was thinking. Her eyes were still searching for where to go for lunch. Enchanting had already reached out to take the lunchbox she was holding and took her into the classroom. He was a new transfer and didn't have a desk mate. At this time, most of the students had gone to the cafeteria. Of course, some people would bring food to the classroom to eat. After all, it would not affect others. Aju followed her second brother and sat down. The cat's tail wagged above her head. She opened the lid of the lunchbox for the little white cat. After dividing half of the rice and dishes, she fed herself a mouthful of rice and ate it. Enchanting looked at her from the side and rolled up her sleeves with a smile. Just like when he was young, his older brother would roll up his sleeves for him. The girl who brought food back from the classroom held back for a long time. In the end, she secretly took a picture and posted it on her WeChat Moments. Heavens, how can it be so sweet? Soon, this WeChat Moments received a lot of reposts and comments. When Li Hailu saw this WeChat Moments, he was about to buy something with Baizhuan and go back to the classroom to eat. He immediately changed his mind. How about this? Since there's still a lot of time, let's eat outside the school? I don't want to move. Baizhuan had already walked to the window. Shaolin also saw that WeChat Moments and immediately pulled him back. How about we go to that popular steamed bun shop? How can you bring it back for Aju if you just order it? Other than rice, Aju's favorite thing to eat was hot steamed buns. It was obvious that Baizhuan was moved by Shaolin's words. He retracted his long legs and said, "Let's go." Shaolin and Li Hailu looked at each other. As expected, only mentioning Aju would change Master Bai's mind. The steamed buns at the entrance of the school were indeed delicious. The noodles used by the couple were very particular. They never added other messy things. They were all pinched and steamed. The skin was thin and the filling was big. It was very cold outside the school. At this time there was definitely a queue. Baizhuan stood quietly in the middle of the crowd in his school uniform. He waited for half an hour for a few steamed buns. Li Hailu shook his head at the side. This is really not like Master Bai, who cherishes time like his life. One had to know that Baizhuan had always been a very well-planned person since he was young. He did what he should do. His self-discipline had always been very good. For him, it was probably only at this time that he would waste his time waiting in line. Shaolin put one hand in his pocket and pushed the glasses on his face. That's why I said that when it comes to Aju's matters, I will never be able to compare to him. Li Hailu was dumbfounded when he heard that. He's your biological child and you're his descendant. Of course you can't compare to him. Shaolin looked at him and felt very annoyed. How should I put it? Hailu, sometimes I really don't know what to do to save your EQ. Get lost? Li Hailu kicked Shaolin. At the age of 17 he liked to play on the streets. It was as if only in this way could he experience the purest kind of youth. It was still snowing outside the school. When Baizhuan bought the steamed buns, his black hair was stained with snow. However, he looked especially good-looking, especially after he took off his mask. The smile on his face made the girls in the queue blush. The students of number 1 high school all knew that Baizhuan especially liked to wear masks in winter. It was just that with his long legs and narrow waist, his temperament was outstanding. These ordinary things became bonus points when they were worn by Baizhuan. Many people would feel their hearts thump because of his pair of pitch-black eyes. Baizhuan really had an appearance that could attract bees and butterflies. Even if he was wearing a pure black mask, it would not damage this kind of aura. Instead, it gave off a very cool feeling. Guro, why aren't you leaving? A girl bumped into Guro. Then when she saw Baizhuan across the road, she smiled. I was wondering why you weren't leaving. So you saw your sweetheart. Guro looked at the tall and straight figure and pulled her classmate. Don't talk nonsense. He'll hear you later. So what if he hears us? The girl continued, you're the school belle of number 2 high school. The school belle and the school belle are a perfect match. Moreover, your family members all know each other. Also, how did you come to school today? We all saw it. You came in the Bai family's car. Tell us honestly, did Bai send you to school? Guro did not deny it. Instead, her face turned red. I told you not to talk nonsense. Why are you still talking? Okay, I won't talk anymore. Let's go look for them. Since we've met, let's have a meal together. Chapter 12-17. If it was any other time, Gu Rou would definitely agree. But this was where she was smart. She knew when to stop. This was also why Gu Rou avoided Bai Jun when she said some things, because she knew that this person could not be provoked. Fortunately, Gu Qing did not know anything. He thought that she and Bai Jun were really together and helped her by the side. But at the same time, Gu Rou knew very well that if she went overboard with some things, the gains would not make up for the losses. What's there to eat? Avoid them. Let's shop for a while more. You guys also accompany me to pick out a gift. I'm going to give it to you tomorrow. I was wondering why you dragged us out to shop today. It turns out that you want to buy a birthday gift for Bai Jun. You're buying it so secretly because you want to give Bai Jun a surprise? Gu Rou smiled and said, of course birthday gifts have to be more mysterious. Gu Rou, bring us to Bai Jun's birthday party. Shao Qing is Heila's girlfriend anyway. Bai Jun shouldn't mind. Gu Rou patted her hand. I'll definitely invite you guys. For this, we've even arranged a small party alone. When the time comes we can have fun together. Us? The girl laughed. Gu Rou, could it be that you and School Bo Bai did this birthday together? Gu Rou pushed her. You're talking nonsense again. My grandfather and Bai Jun are family friends. My grandfather will be staying at the Bai family for the next 2 days because he wants to meet with his old friends. Bai Jun's coming-of-age ceremony is no small matter, so my grandfather came up with an idea. This is not something I can decide. Did I hear wrongly? You actually stayed at Bai Jun's house. The girl touched her. Tell me honestly, did anything happen between you guys? Gu Rou blushed and did not say anything. She knew very well what expression was the most appropriate time to make. As for whether others would misunderstand or not, that had nothing to do with her. As expected, the two girls beside her widened their eyes. Looks like there's progress. Heavens, although it's you, Gu Rou, I feel so jealous just thinking about that scene. You have to know that Bai Jun has never allowed anyone to get close to him in the past. Don't ask me anymore. I'm going to buy a gift. The more Gu Rou changed the topic, the more imagination the two girls had. They smiled and held Gu Rou's hand. Since they were going to attend School Belle Bai's birthday party, it was definitely not good to go empty-handed. They had to pick out some gifts. Across the road, Bai Jun had already bought the steamed buns. It was only when he entered the school that he remembered that he still had the passbook in his phone. A Jew had sent him a message in the morning, saying that she would eat by herself this afternoon. In the end he had no choice. Everything had become a subconscious action. He wanted to buy her favorite things, but he had forgotten about this fork in the road. Bai Jun lowered his head and looked at the steaming vegetable bun in his hand. He still sent a WeChat message to a Jew. Are you eating now? When a Jew saw the WeChat message, her cheeks were stuffed with rice. She used one hand to reply, yes. After thinking for a while she added, I eat a lot. You don't have to worry about me. It would be a lie to say that he was not disappointed. Bai Jun pressed his finger on his phone. More. I'll pick you up after class. No need. A Jew typed seriously. I'll eat outside tonight. I'll go back after I finish my homework. She had this idea when she went back yesterday. However, after what happened in the morning, a Jew was even more certain of her idea. In the future, if she could eat outside, she would eat outside. It would also save others the trouble of accommodating her. Moreover, with her second brother here, she would definitely have to eat with him for the next few days. On the other side, Bai Jun looked at the last WeChat message and the picture on his moments. He stopped in his tracks and felt that the soup dumplings in his palm were burning hot. He looked at one of the people in the picture with a faint smile, while the other tilted her head with complete trust. His eyes felt a little piercing. Master Bai, why aren't you leaving? Li Hailu reached out and put his hand on his shoulder. Naturally, he saw his phone screen. His smile froze and he immediately turned around to give Shaolin a look. Before Shaolin could say anything, Bai Jun put all the soup dumplings in his hands into their arms. Throw them away or eat them. It's up to you. Hey Bai Jun. Li Hailu did not call him back no matter how hard he tried. He lowered his eyes and looked at the steaming buns. He knew that Bai Jun was feeling bad. After waiting in line for more than 20 minutes, this was the result. Why did you have to be like this? Li Hailu said dejectedly, what should we do now? Shaolin's eyes also darkened. He was more or less worried about Bai Jun. This was because even he could feel that a Jew treated Hellion Qingchen differently. Not to mention Bai Juan, who was the most familiar with Aju. He had once thought about what would happen if Aju fell in love with someone else in the end. He knew Bai Juan better than anyone else. Bai Juan could not bear it at all. To Bai Juan, Aju was not only the person he liked, but also the person who had been by his side since he was young. The more reluctant he was to part with such a relationship, the more worried he would be about losing it. However, if he was really about to lose it, he really did not dare to imagine what Bai Juan would do. The snowflakes on the field fell one by one. After leaving the school, Bai Juan did not go home. Instead, he went to the dojo where Aju often went to practice martial arts. He stood there for an entire afternoon. When he returned to the Bai family, his black hair was covered in snow, and even his eyelashes were the same. Old Master Gu and Old Master Bai were playing chess in the living room. When they saw him like this, they were both stunned. Bai Juan, what's wrong with you? Nothing. Bai Juan held his school bag with one hand. His head was slightly lowered and his black hair covered his face. Indeed, no one could see his expression clearly. Old Master Bai felt that something was not right, but his grandson was old after all, so he did not know what the problem was. When Gu Rou heard this news, she begged Auntie Wang to teach her how to make ginger soup so that she could serve it to Bai Juan. When Aju returned, she saw Gu Rou standing at the door of the room. She paused for a moment and walked to the guest room with the white cat on her head. Aju thought that tomorrow was her little brother's birthday. Even if she did not appear, she still had to deliver the gift. There was a message from Gu Qing on her phone. He asked Aju to promise to buy him breakfast and he would give the Alaskan sled dog to Ajuk. Anyway, it was just a matter of breakfast, so Aju immediately agreed. The next day at dawn, Aju packed her things and left the room. When she left, the servants had already started to set up the venue. No one noticed her except for Gu Rou, who was scheming in her heart. Chapter 12-18. Aju. Gu Rou took advantage of the fact that she had not left the courtyard and ran over with a troubled expression on her face. I know you have some misunderstandings about me, but today is your brother's birthday. Many people will be here in the afternoon. You grew up in the mountains when you were young. Perhaps you don't understand that aristocratic families like ours always have a lot of misgivings. Your brother and I don't want you to be unhappy. If your expression isn't good, many people will be embarrassed, so I really hope that you can act a little happier. I heard from Gu Qing that you want to give Bai Juan a gift. That Alaska is too fierce and isn't suitable for it to appear at such a grand banquet. If it bites someone, it will be very difficult for the Bai family. If you only want to give a dog to your brother, you can wait until the banquet is over. During this time you can play with us. What do you want to play? We will accompany you. How about it? Aju's voice was very calm as she gave her 2 words. No need. Seeing that she was about to leave, Gu Rou quickly said, Aju, you didn't eat breakfast yesterday. Your brother is very worried about you. Today Auntie Wang specially made noodles for you. It's vegetarian. You can leave after eating. Don't let your brother worry about you. Aju turned around. She had a small face and her eyes were very beautiful. She did not say anything. She just glanced at Gu Rou. Gu Rou was still smiling. You can't always do whatever you want just because you're a younger sister. You should know how important today's coming-of-age ceremony is to Bai Juan. Aju, although you're still young, there's something I want to tell you. Not everyone is worthy of the Bai family. Compared to a dog, what Bai Juan wants more is endless power, and this can only be given by the Gu family. Hearing this, Aju finally opened her mouth. Her tone was very calm. I'm also very rich. Gu Rou laughed when she heard this, and there was another meaning in her words. Aju, you're really naive and cute. In the future you'll know what I mean by power. At your age and status now, you really won't understand. Aju didn't care what Gu Rou thought. Bai Juan liked dogs. She knew it better than anyone else. Going to school was to hold Alaska's hand. Gu Qing kept his promise. He didn't wear a school uniform. He wore a black leather jacket on his upper body and held the Alaskan Malamute with one hand. He always felt that it was difficult to control it. On the other hand, the big dog became much more obedient after seeing Aju. Really did not know who was the master. Little Bean, where's my breakfast? Aju saw that Gu Qing was holding a big dog that he couldn't control and felt that it was difficult for him. She immediately took out the big steamed buns that she had bought from her school bag. Here. Gu Qing looked at the 10 steamed buns in front of him and was immediately dumbfounded. You want me to eat this? I always eat steamed buns for breakfast. After saying that, a Jew added, the steamed buns in this shop are very delicious. There are vegetables inside. Guqing didn't believe it. Did you also buy steamed buns for Enchanting? Yes. A Jew nodded. Guqing said, you bought 10? A Jew looked at the big dog and waved at it. Guqing gripped the dog leash in his hand tightly. Enchanting has finished eating? What's his stomach made of? 10 steamed buns. Who is going to be stuffed to death? A Jew said with a small face, I've sent you breakfast. Are you going to give me the big dog or not? 10 steamed buns for an Alaskan dog. I can't believe I would do such a losing deal. Guqing really felt that he was crazy. There must be something wrong with my brain, but for your own good, you'd better not send this dog to your brother's birthday party. It will be very troublesome if it bites someone. You can send it in advance or after the party. It's up to you. I'm going to your house first. Everyone will be very busy today. Take care of yourself. A Jew nodded. She didn't tell him that she didn't plan to go to the birthday party at all. She was going to follow her second brother today. Guqing saw that she only nodded and felt extremely helpless. If his grandfather saw this, he would definitely laugh at him. Ever since he was born, he had never been so kind to anyone. Little Bean, don't you have anything to say? Guqing raised his eyebrows. He looked very handsome. A Jew brought the Alaskan dog over, touched the big dog's head and said to Guqing, I'll give you the money tomorrow. Do I lack money? After Guqing finished speaking, in order to avoid being angered by her, he had to change the topic. Watch the dog. I'm leaving. A Jew nodded. Guqing was about to leave when he saw a bicycle in front of him. There was a person sitting on the bicycle. He supported the bicycle with one leg and had a faint smile on his face. Those Enchanting? Guqing hesitantly stopped his footsteps. A Jew was happy. She ran over in an instant and the Alaskan dog followed behind her. When the Alaskan dog saw Enchanting, it immediately showed its fangs. It was obvious that it wanted to pounce on Enchanting. However, in the next moment, a strange thing happened. The originally fierce large dog suddenly stopped in front of the bicycle, and its back was still trembling. As if it was afraid. Guqing felt that he must have seen wrongly. No one knew better than him how powerful this Alaskan dog was usually. Would it be afraid? Then he looked at Enchanting, who was holding the bicycle. The faint smile on the corner of his mouth didn't change at all. His eyes fell on the Alaskan dog indifferently. This dog is not bad. Awoo. The Alaskan dog retracted its claws with trepidation. A Jew held the big paw and said in a serious manner, It's greeting you. Guqing. Is there such a way to greet someone? Want to tear the other party apart? He thought that only a Jew would think so in the whole world. Unexpectedly, the person who was attacked actually smiled and reached out his hand to hold the Alaskan dog's paw. Hi, hello. Guqing swore that he really saw his beloved dog trembling, even though that beloved dog had already been sent out by him. But wasn't this too unusual? This is. Enchanting seemed to have just noticed him. A Jew introduced, Guqing, my desk mate. Also surnamed Gu? Enchanting continued to smile. That's a really good surname. Guqing looked into his eyes and found that there was no warmth in those eyes. He thought of that day in the cafeteria. It was this person who had a conflict with his cousin and the others. Guqing wasn't present at that time. Later he heard the whole story. This person used such a method to get close to a Jew. It was really unpleasant to see this. He walked towards Enchanting with one hand in his pocket. When he brushed past her, he said in a low voice, That's why I said don't provoke the one surnamed Gu. You can't afford to. I have to hurry to the school to pick them up and then go get the gifts together. Yes, he had to follow her steps. Baijun could reject her once, twice. He couldn't reject her a third time. Moreover, at the birthday party, there was one thing that he had always wanted and he would definitely not reject it. Gu Rose smiled when she thought of this. She called Old Master Gu sweetly and confirmed again, Grandpa, do you really want me to hand that thing to Baijun? Don't worry, that child Baijun will like this gift. Even if you don't give it to him, I have to give it to him. Old Master Gu held a fountain pen and laughed softly. I've already asked my secretary to prepare the things and sign the papers. When Bai Jun finishes cutting the cake, you can hand it to him. There will always be people who like to see a golden couple. Grandpa. Gu Rou pulled open the car door and called out unwillingly. Old Master Gu chuckled. Hey. I won't talk about it anymore. Why are you still shy? Gu Rou said a few more words to Old Master Gu before hanging up. She sat in the car and looked down at her phone. At the birthday party she would give this gift away. A Jew should understand the difference between her and her. In the end she was just a child from the mountains. If she had been the little princess of the Bai family, she wouldn't have hated her so much. But she just had to be such a hindrance. Gu Rou tightened her left hand and laughed again. How could an orphan girl be worthy of the Bai family? The scenery outside the car window quickly passed by. On the mountain road leading to the suburbs, Bai Jun sat at the back of the car. The back of his hand still had the needle marks from yesterday's intravenous drip. His throat was so painful that even his nasal voice was heavy when he spoke. Take a shortcut. Young master. Vice Commander Zhang sat in the passenger seat and said worriedly, You're not in good health. There's still a banquet in the afternoon. Why don't I order the things first? We'll come back another day to get them. Bai Jun coughed heavily twice. His side profile remained handsome and indifferent. I'll get them today. There's news from old Su. There's someone else who wants this purple jade Buddha head. Vice Commander Zhang opened his mouth. In the end he couldn't help but ask, Young master has bought quite a number of jade Buddhas from Mississippi. Actually, it doesn't matter if there's one or two missing, right? She's not in a good mood recently. Bai Jun turned his gaze over. The purple jade Buddha head is different from the others. There's a relic of an eminent monk in it. It's said that it fell from Mountain Tenya. It can help people block the disturbances of the mortal world and protect people from being invaded by all things. It's very suitable for a Jew to wear. After Vice Commander Zhang heard this, he didn't continue to persuade him. Because only he knew that the young master didn't just take a fancy to this purple jade Buddha head these few days. A long time ago the young master had looked for many people to buy this purple jade Buddha head. In the end it was old Master Gu who pulled the strings and found the whereabouts of this Buddha head. It was indeed impossible to persuade the young master to give up now. If it wasn't for the news of the Buddha head in old Master Gu's hands that day, the young master probably wouldn't have agreed to go shopping with anyone. He could see that the young master was not happy at that time. But even at that time the young master didn't look as lonely as he did now. Lord Bai didn't know that a Jew was bullied. When these things happened he wasn't there. If he knew, Gu Rou would have been over long ago and Qingchen wouldn't have appeared. There wouldn't have been any story at all, so don't distort the plot and character settings. Mwah. Chapter 12:20. The place where the purple jade Buddha head was placed was in an ancient town near the capital. This ancient town was not very famous in the past. It was not until a variety show came to film that it became very popular. Many people would bring their children here because of its fame. Therefore, a short drive of more than an hour was stretched out wirelessly because of the congestion on the road. Bai Jun and the others were driving a Hummer. The advantage of such a car was that it would not hold up the bottom. The disadvantage was that it was too big, unlike some old cars that could be rubbed over. Fortunately, the driver was an experienced driver. Under normal circumstances he was very experienced. If he was in a hurry he could take a shortcut. However, taking a shortcut meant that he had to take a dirt road. After considering the safety issue, the driver decided to wait for the train to open. Bai Jun was indeed no longer as sharp as before. It was probably because he was sick that he was not so sharp anymore. However, his temperament still did not change. He still wore a black mask on his face. He got out of the car and looked at the car in front of him. Then he raised his hand to look at his watch. Call home and tell grandfather not to worry. I will be there on time. Vice Commander Zhang saw his actions and knew that he was going to walk over. He quickly followed behind. Fortunately, the road was not far. It was less than a kilometer to the entrance of the village. After entering the village, there was an ancient bluestone path. Bai Jun stood there, attracting many people's gazes. He pulled out the address stored in his phone and walked in front of a villager. He coughed lightly and asked, "Granny, do you know how to get to this place?" The old woman spoke in the local language. She puffed up her cheeks and replied. Bai Jun was a native of the capital. He could not understand the dialect in Hubei province at all. He could only guess with his own understanding. In the end, the old woman shook her head. Only then did he know that this granny did not know how to read at all. Because the place was not easy to find, Bai Jun could only ask people in the village one by one. A buzzing voice came from the mask, making people anxious for him. It was not easy for an uncle to come. After looking at the address on the phone, he said that he wanted to bring Bai Jun there. It turned out that the person who owned the purple jade Buddha head was an eminent monk who traveled the world. He had only recently settled down here. When Bai Jun heard this, he immediately followed. It was a very ordinary courtyard house. The flowers and plants planted in the courtyard house were all covered in snow. Only Uncle Dongqing was still a little green. As soon as Bai Jun walked in, he heard a voice coming from the courtyard. Amit Ba. It's not that I don't want to give this purple jade Buddha head to you, but the evil aura on your body is too strong. Even if you get the Buddha head, you will destroy it. Demonic chi? A trace of doubt appeared on Bai Jun's masked face. When he was on the mountain, he had only heard from his master that there was evil aura in people, but he had never heard of any evil aura. Being too vicious didn't mean that he had killed a lot of people. Instead, it was related to the people and things around him. Those who had no bottom line were the ones who were most prone to anger. However, he had never believed in these things from the beginning to the end. Until he adopted a Jew. There were some things that only when you met someone important would you rather believe in them than not believe in them. Thinking of this, Bai Jun's dark eyes flashed. Then he heard the voice in the room say, "The little benefactor outside should also be here for my Buddha purple jade. Why don't you come in first?" Bai Jun did not hesitate. He stepped over the steps and saw the scene in the room. In front of a wooden square table sat an eminent monk. He was wearing a monk's robe and was not very outstanding. However, the man sitting opposite him was too handsome. His skin was so fair that it seemed to be shining. He was wearing a straight black suit with a bouquet of dark red roses in the pocket of his suit. His slender hands were wrapped in pure white gloves. It was very easy to think of a movie that had once swept the world. Night Interview with the Vampire. Amit Ba. The eminent monk recited a scripture to the man. Benefactor, Buddha always talks about fate. Some things can't be forced. The man lowered his eyes and curled his lips. He was still spinning a cup of tea between his fingers. Talking about fate with me? When the eminent monk heard this, his expression seemed to turn ugly for a moment. However, he was more afraid, as if he had recognized the man's identity. You. Bai Jun reached out and pressed the back of the eminent monk. He still wore a black mask on his face. His pitch-black eyes looked at the man, neither servile nor overbearing. The eminent monk chanted Amit Ba again. "Little benefactor, this old monk can't agree to what you want today. Little benefactor has nothing to do with this place. Little benefactor, you'd better leave quickly." "I won't leave until I get the Buddha's head." Bai Jun stood at the side. He was wearing a pure white down jacket. His figure was slender and his aura did not weaken in the slightest. However, the eminent monk really wanted to push him out. He looked at the man opposite him warily, as if the person standing in front of him was not a human, but some kind of ferocious beast. The man only supported his chin with one hand and looked at the eminent monk with an indifferent expression. "It seems that you have already recognized me. In that case, don't waste any more time. Otherwise, I can't guarantee that no one will bleed in this room." The eminent monk knew that he was using Bai Jun's life to threaten him. "However, it's not that I'm unwilling to hand over the Buddha's head, but when the Buddha's head is in your Highness' hands, it will be destroyed in an instant." The eminent monk put his palms together. At that time, this Buddha's head will be meaningless. He could sense that the Buddha's head was in this room, but at the same time he could also sense that the Buddha's aura was suppressed by him a little. It seemed that this old baldy was not lying. The purple jade Buddha's head would indeed be destroyed in his hands. His Highness, who had originally wanted to bring his daughter home earlier, darkened his eyes and stood up. His eyes swept over Bai Jun, who was standing at the side. The eminent monk thought that he was going to make a move, so he hurriedly moved to the side. However, His Highness did not start a massacre as he thought. Instead, he walked out of the room as if there was no one else around. He said coldly, "Go." Many bat-like birds flew up from the beams in the room. Black feathers fluttered down. Bai Jun stretched out his hand to block his eyes. When he turned around, he saw that the eminent monk seemed to have heaved a sigh of relief as he sat back on the wooden chair. Bai Juan frowned. Today's matter was inevitably too strange. First of all, the road had been blocked for so long. It was snowing outside, but there was not a single trace of snowflakes on that man's body. How did he come over with such a blocked road? Moreover, what was going on with those bats? Bai Juan had always been an idealist. Other than himself, he did not believe in any gods or ghosts. If it were not for a Jew, he would not even believe in Buddha's fate. However, these phenomena that could not be explained clearly with what he had learned made Bai Juan doubt the identity of the man. Who was he? Chapter 12:21. Amit Ba. When the monk saw that the man had left, he stood up and pushed the teacup beside him. When the teacup spun, a Buddha head the size of a pearl rose from the wooden table. Ever since my Buddha purple jade entered the world, there have always been disturbances in this world. In order to avoid this calamity, this penniless monk preached all over the world. Now that this penniless monk is old and will pass away soon, it should be handed over to someone with Buddha's fate. But now it seems that I won't be able to hold on until then. Since I've been targeted by him, it should be very difficult for me to escape. Young benefactor's righteousness is also suitable for this Buddha head. As he spoke, the monk handed the purple jade to Bai Juan. Then he pressed his palms together and chanted, Amit Ba. After that he didn't say anything else. Instead he sat there and meditated. The value of the purple jade Buddha head was very high. Vice Commander Zhang had originally prepared a large sum of money. What he didn't expect was that as soon as he came in with a small leather case, the young master had already gotten what he wanted. Bai Juan glanced at him and said indifferently, Let's go. Don't disturb the monk's rest. Vice Commander Zhang lifted the leather case. What about the money? There's no need. Bai Juan was the first to walk out of the courtyard. His nasal voice was still very heavy and even his head was a little heavy. Every joint was aching because of the heavy cold. After getting into the car, the road ahead was still blocked. Bai Juan wore the Buddha head on his wrist. He glanced at Master Li, who was sitting in front of him, and seemed to have thought of something. He asked, I haven't passed the car since I entered? Yes. Master Li said as he turned the steering wheel. Young master, don't be anxious. This road is indeed not easy to walk on today. I reckon that it will take us some time to get out of this road. Bai Juan lowered his eyes and did not say anything. He only reached out and pressed the space between his eyebrows. How did that man come here? And how did he disappear? Young master, what's wrong? Are you feeling unwell? Vice Commander Zhang asked from the side. Bai Juan put on his mask and looked out of the window. No, let's go back as soon as possible. Yes. Vice Commander Zhang closed the car door. They didn't know that on the mountain peak above their heads, a man in a black suit was playing with a single rose in his hand. He was looking down at the congested traffic from high above, and the corners of his mouth curved into an evil smile. That man was none other than the one Bai Juan had seen in the monk's room. He was also one of the 3 halls of the Devil Palace, Beligaju. Behind him there seemed to be countless clouds churning. No one could see what was hidden in those clouds. Beside him, an ancient divine beast, the fire Qilin, which looked like a lion but was 3 times the size of a lion's head, was wagging its tail and opening its mouth. Master, are we just going to give the purple jade Buddha head to this human? That was not just something that fell from Mountain Tenya. When the true Buddha reappeared in the world, he shone the Buddha's light on this purple jade, which formed the Buddha's head. Ever since she sent the little master away, the Princess Consort had been looking for this Buddha head. Master wanted to snatch the Buddha's head from Princess Consort and give her a surprise. After all, if he had it, the little master would not have to wait until the year of reincarnation to return home. As long as he wore this Buddha head, he should be able to live safely with his master and the little master. Although the little master would be filming outside for a long time to earn money to support the family. But in the past few days he didn't know what was going on. The little master seemed to have a grudge against someone. He tortured some restless demons in the demon world several times. They wanted to get close to the little master, but they were afraid that the demonic aura on their bodies was too strong. In the end, they sat on the stone steps and pressed their phones to vent their anger. No one knew who they were sending WeChat messages to. His manager had suffered a lot. Recently he couldn't wait to knock on the master's office door every day. Now he finally found this Buddha head. How could the master give up just like that? This was not like his usual unreasonable style at all. His surname is Bai. Baligaju retracted his gaze. As if he had seen through the fire Chilan's thoughts, he looked over. The fire Chilan seemed to tremble. Then it began to try its best to reduce its presence. Baligaju continued, Sakya and I have always been sick of each other. His remaining Buddha light will only be damaged in my hands. Since this child's surname is Bai, the Buddha head will always be in Aju's hands. When he sends the purple jade out, we will go to the courtyard. Baligaju crushed the petals in his hand. The floating clouds also churned. Bring Aju home. The last 5 words echoed in the valley in a low voice. No one could hear what he said. Large patches of black feathers flew up, wrapping the man and the divine beast in the middle. In the blink of an eye there was nothing left. 12 o'clock. It was also noon. The road where Baijun was had just been cleared. However, in the schools in the city, it was the most active time for the students. Aju originally wanted to go to class, but she brought a large dog with her. In fact, not to mention the classroom, even the malls were not allowed to enter. Instead, she could take it for a walk outside the school. However, she did not know if it was Aju's imagination. She always felt that the big dog she saw today was much more obedient than that day when she saw it in the snow. Especially when her second brother looked over, little Allah's neck would shrink a little. It was really very obedient. Aju reached out her hand and touched Alaska's big head. Her white cat was still on top of her head. Enchanting was afraid that her sister would be tired, so she said with a faint smile, Give me the rope. Okay. Aju thought for a moment and added, But second brother, you have to watch little Allah. It has a bad temper and likes to bite people. Enchanting smiled slightly. Bad temper? Awoo. Little Alaska immediately retracted its claws and walked beside Enchanting like a cat. It looked like it wanted to be obedient and go to heaven. Seeing this, Aju felt that her second brother was simply powerful to a certain extent. She and her big brother both relied on their martial strength to win. For example, the first time she saw little Allah, she directly put on an aura of wanting to tame a beast and pounced on little Allah. Guqing should not be able to see it, but she did rely on her martial strength to crush little Allah. Unlike her second brother, it seemed that he did not need to do anything and had his own beast-taming ability. Second brother didn't ask you yesterday. Enchanting stopped and looked at Aju with a smile. Why don't you want to go back to the Bai family today? Just as Aju was about to speak, a familiar smile came from behind her. Aju. Behind her were her 2 sisters. They seemed to have dressed up meticulously. Their faces were covered in makeup and they looked very youthful. Chapter 12:22. It was Guro. Behind her were her 2 sisters. They seemed to have dressed up meticulously. Their faces were covered in makeup and they looked very youthful. Guro ran over. Why are you still here? Didn't you go back? It's already past 12 o'clock. The birthday party will start at 4 o'clock. Do you want us sisters to bring you back? Birthday party? What birthday party? Someone beside her heard Guro's words and asked softly. Don't you know? Today is the birthday of Bai Bei. He has already applied for the afternoon leave. I heard that he is going to hold a birthday party in the courtyard. Bai Bei's birthday party? I want to go too. Save it. Do you think you are also a friend of Belgu? Bai Bei only invites Belgu's friends. Passers-by like us can only stand aside. Whispers could be heard coming from all directions. Aju listened quietly and did not say anything. Guro was still the same. She smiled very sweetly with her hands behind her back. She tilted her head and looked at Aju as if she was waiting for her answer. The 2 girls behind her looked at the people around them and smiled at each other. It was indeed an honor to be invited by the Bai family. If it wasn't for Guro, they definitely wouldn't have been able to enter the courtyard. Although it wasn't Bai Bei who personally invited them, what was the difference between Guro and Bai Bei? Therefore, there was still a beautiful friend by their side who could go where they wanted to go. That's right, Aju, you can go back with us. One of the girls opened her mouth and muttered, So that school bell Bai won't have to come and pick you up later. Aju looked up and glanced at that person. The girl smiled and blinked. Aju, I don't mean anything else. I also heard from Aro that the school bell cancelled some of the celebration projects for you. There are no games like Truth or Dare. It's just eating. When the time comes we will all play together. Don't always be so distant from us. Heh. Hellion Chinchin looked up with a faint smile, her tone was very slow. A Jew and you don't even know each other, what's there to be distant from each other? The girl choked for a moment, then sneered, Hey, isn't this the handsome guy who rides a bicycle to school every day? We were friends with a Jew's brother to begin with, so how could we not be estranged? Her brother? Hellion Chinchin's eyes turned cold. Are you sure you know who her brother is? Of course, even if you're talking about Baizhuan, in my memory Baizhuan doesn't even know your name. Didn't he not say a word the last time we met? The girl was speechless again. Indeed, Colonel Bai did not even know her. The most they had met twice. That was also because he followed Gu Rou. Right, Gu Rou? Our Gu Rou is the girlfriend of Colonel Bai. Even if Baizhuan can't call out my name, everyone knows me. As she spoke, the girl raised her chin. Hellion Chinchin raised her eyebrows. In the end, someone else is Baizhuan's girlfriend. I really don't understand. What does this have to do with you? Is it worth showing off like this? After hearing Hellion Chinchin's mockery, the onlookers also covered their mouths and laughed. The girl's face was flushed red. Gu Rou immediately helped her out. This is my best friend. We often eat with Baizhuan and the others. We have been friends for a long time. We will often be together in the future. It's only a matter of time before we get familiar with each other. As she spoke, she looked at the big dog that a Jew was holding. A Jew, this Alaska is very fierce. You have to be careful. I ran over to greet you because I wanted to get along well with you. Just like I said this morning, today is your brother's birthday. Let's not make things unpleasant. You also shouldn't interact with people he doesn't like and make his heart feel uncomfortable. Since you don't want to go back with us, I'll get the driver to pick you up later. Your brother is busy today, so I'm afraid he won't be able to find the time. If there's anything, just call me. As soon as she finished speaking, Gu Rou looked at the two people behind her. Let's go first. It's not suitable for a Jew to enter with a dog. Okay. The two girls nodded in unison. One of them turned around and looked at Hellion Chinchin unwillingly. The mockery in her eyes was obvious, as if saying that a poor boy dared to embarrass her. If it wasn't for a Jew's protection, if it wasn't for the fact that a Jew was the sister of Colonel Bai, they would have dealt with him long ago. Hellion Chinchin was the best at reading people. Of course, she knew what these girls were thinking. Her eyes curled up and her lips curled into a smile. If Gu Rou took a closer look, she would realize that the Alaska that she thought was very fierce was shrinking like a spotted wolf dog. It didn't even dare to stretch out its claws. How could a person who could make a fierce dog so afraid be a poor boy? Is it because of this reason that you don't want to go back to the Bai family? Hellion Chinchin looked at the backs of the few people and turned her face. She smiled faintly and pressed her hand on Aju's head, rubbing it lovingly. Aju shook her head. No, they're not important. Oh. Hellion Chinchin smiled. Then why? Even second brother can't guess it. Aju's delicate little face was very cute. I don't want to always be treated like a child. The Bai family has to pay attention to a lot of details when holding a banquet. The people who come are all powerful and influential. If they bring a Jew to the banquet, they will definitely be afraid. At that time it will also be difficult for little brother. Moreover, that's little brother's girlfriend. Everyone wants to be with the person they like on their birthday. I'm like that. So, I don't want to disturb little brother and I don't want to make things difficult for the Bai family. Just because I only eat vegetarian food, it will make things difficult for the people around me. If I appear at the birthday party and those girls say bad things, what if I can't help but beat them up? The main thing is that I definitely can't help it. Second brother, can you understand? It's very difficult for me not to beat people up. Hellion Chinchin listened to her sister's serious and cute expression, and the smile on her face spread from the corners of her eyes to the corners of her mouth. I can understand. Second brother can understand your feelings very well. Right? Aju seemed to have found a confidant and held her second brother's hand enthusiastically. Hellion Chinchin smiled and said, Then let's go back to my place first? When it's about time I'll send you back to the Bai family. Aju hesitated for a moment before nodding. Let's go. Hellion Chinchin glanced at the Alaskan sled dog. Follow me to get the car first. Okay. A Jew said with the white cat on her head, I want to sit in the back seat with Xiao Bai. Of course Hellion Qingchen would let her sister do whatever she wanted. However, there was one thing. Other than making Bai Jun anxious, it was also time to let some people know that their Jew was not to be trifled with. Two hours later, they arrived at the entrance of number 1 high school on time. 3:45. Bai Jun glanced at the time on his phone, pushed open the car door and walked toward the office building. He wanted to apply for leave for the last class in the afternoon before going to Aju's classroom. Aju? The form teacher of the 3rd grade raised his eyes to look at Bai Jun. She didn't come to class in the afternoon and left at noon. Isn't today your birthday? She should have gone home early. A few days ago she came to my place to apply for leave and said that she wanted to buy you a birthday present. The teacher's words made the smile in Bai Jun's eyes even more obvious. Vice Commander Zhang saw that his young master seemed to have changed after going to the teaching building and coming back. He could not help but be a little surprised. What was going on? Going home. Bai Jun put on his mask and the corners of his mouth curled up. Vice Commander Zhang exclaimed, Aren't you going to pick up Miss? He should be at home. Hearing Bai Jun's words, the driver did not hesitate anymore. He stepped on the accelerator to the end and drove into the busy traffic. The cars that entered and exited the military compound were basically of the same grade. For the Bai family's only grandson's coming-of-age ceremony, other than some people in the military compound, there would also be some huge businessmen inside. When the Hummer drove into the compound, it was already past 4 in the afternoon. The banquet was about to begin. There were many guards and bodyguards outside the compound. Everyone needed to have a guest invitation to enter. Those who did not have an invitation were all rejected at the door. The examination was very strict. The 2 girls beside Gu Rou were still saying, Fortunately we have Gu Rou by our side. Otherwise we wouldn't have been able to enter at all. That's right. Gu Rou, when you just entered the compound someone asked you to show your invitation. Why don't you even need an invitation when you're at the Bai family's place? Gu Rou laughed and whispered into their ear, Look at these 2 doors. There are Gu family's bodyguards. I just need to show my face. As expected, the pavilion closest to the water enjoys moonlight first. The girl teased Gu Rou. Gu Rou then told the truth. Grandpa Bai and my grandfather were comrades in arms a long time ago. The 2 of them had a very deep relationship. However, later on my grandfather went overseas to join the business world. Grandpa Bai was originally from a military family and had always been in the compound. It's not strange that there are people from the Gu family on Bai Jun's birthday this time. However, when she heard that Bai Jun had gone out early in the morning, she made some changes to the plan. Wasn't Aju so embarrassed that she didn't want to come back with her? Similarly, she didn't want to see this person at the birthday banquet either. Then when it was about time she would get someone to let her in. Gu Rou smiled lightly and flicked her long hair. She still looked very pure and bright. Let's go in first. The banquet will start in less than 10 minutes. I'm really excited. What should I do? Why are you so excited? It's not your birthday. But speaking of which, the banquet is about to start. Why isn't Colonel Bai here yet? At this moment, in the grand and luxurious Bai family mansion, exquisite dishes were already placed on the long table, as well as bottles of fine red wine. Even the outside of the courtyard had begun to light up piles of fruit trees, whole sheep were on the rack and knives and forks were in unlimited supply. Outside the courtyard were soldiers in military uniforms, and inside were professional chefs and waiters hired from outside. All of them were busy. It was even more textured than the banquet in the hotel. It made people look forward to it. Chapter 12:24. However, all of a sudden the music became much quieter. The people on the other side all looked to the side. Bai Jun was back. He had already taken off the mask on his face, revealing his well-defined face. His fine black hair hid his eyelashes, and he was as noble and cold as ever. The clothes he wore when he went out had already been changed. The woolen tassel jacket that reached his legs made him look even more handsome and tall. His rice clothes were light and his face was fine. As soon as he appeared, he suppressed all his peers at the banquet. Old Master Bai looked satisfied and the smile on his face became even wider. At this time the people attending the banquet also walked up to Bai Juan. They greeted him and laughed. I really didn't expect Bai Juan to be so old in the blink of an eye. It's worth coming back this time. This kid has to go to my place. Why should he go to your place? He should go to my place. The Flying Tiger Brigade is suitable for our Bai Juan. The people standing in that row were all wearing military uniforms. Bai Juan had seen them before. Even if he was not feeling well, his face did not show anything. He smiled faintly and greeted, Uncle Li, Uncle Lu. Bai Juan, let me tell you. You have to go to our place. To be honest, don't go to your uncle's place, okay? He trains people to take a layer off them. Li Boyan was talking about Bai Juan's uncle, the famous demon third young master Tang. Bai Juan smiled. Uncle Li, how could you forget again? Uncle has already retired from the army. Li Boyan was stunned and shook his head. I can only blame him for giving me too much psychological trauma when he was around. It was really not a good feeling to be scolded by someone younger than him as a rookie, and the other party's military rank was higher than his. The most important thing was that that person did not look like a soldier at all. Instead, he looked like a warlord young master from the Republic of China era. However, speaking of which, Bai Juan did not look like he could enter the army, but in fact that was not the case. Bai Juan coughed lightly. Uncle Li, you guys chat first. I'll go up first. He was going to look for a Jew. From the moment he came in until now, he had not seen the child's shadow, so Bai Juan could not help but be anxious. The strange thing was that a Jew was not even on the second floor. He searched the bedroom and kitchen, but he still could not find her. The two girls behind Gu Rou kept looking at Bai Juan. That's strange. What is Colonel Bai looking for? Shouldn't he cut the cake first? Gu Rou narrowed her eyes and didn't say anything. Tad, she smiled. At this time the music also changed and gradually became more passionate. Li Hailu and Shaolin also saw that something had happened to Bai Juan. Both of them were wearing suits today and were very handsome. Shaolin was still doing foreign policy with his mother. When he saw that Bai Juan had no intention of cutting the cake, he looked at Li Hailu and walked over. What's wrong? Shaolin lowered his voice. Bai Juan suppressed the pain in his throat and said in a hoarse voice, A Jew isn't back yet. Not back yet? Li Hailu frowned. Today is such an important day. It's impossible that she doesn't know. Did she go to the courtyard to play? Bai Juan shook his head. No, I went upstairs to take a look. Her school bag is not in the bedroom. What's going on? Li Hailu raised his head and looked at the clock hanging in the living room. Could it be that she's still in school? How about this, you cut the cake first. Shaolin and I will go and pick a Jew up. Don't worry, we'll definitely let her spend this birthday with you alone. Bai Juan coughed again. She's not in school either. Before I came back I went to the teaching building. The homeroom teacher said that she had already applied for leave for today. Then where did she go? Li Hailu was also surprised. Gu Rou listened at the side and walked over with a wine glass. She should have gone to play with Helian Qingchen. Helian Qingchen? Li Hailu's eyes suddenly widened. That transfer student? When we came we saw a Jew with him. We even asked a Jew if she wanted to come back with us, but she didn't agree. Yes. The two girls behind Gu Rou also spoke. Those two people were quite intimate with the dog. They should still be together now. Hearing this, Shaolin frowned. He looked at Bai Juan with a hint of worry in his eyes. Bai Juan valued this birthday very much. The reason why he valued it was because he had already planned to spend the rest of the time alone with the Jew except for the social interaction part. However, because a Jew was with someone else, she missed the opening of the banquet. Shaolin's heart tightened. He was really afraid that Bai Juan would do something on this day. Li Hailu also knew the details and immediately said, Bai Juan, do what you have to do. A Jew definitely won't forget such an important day. Maybe she's rushing over here. Hailu is right. Gu Rou gently echoed from the side. Her snow-white long dress swayed. No matter how young a Jew is, she knows what's more important. It's almost time to cut the cake. If we don't start now, I'm afraid she'll be anxious later. Bai Juan did not say anything. He stood there with a cold and indifferent expression. His drooping hair covered his eyes. Perhaps it was because he was sick, but at that moment he actually made people feel that his tall and straight jade-like back was somewhat lonely. When the two girls beside Gu Rou saw this, they only felt that this Aju was really insensible. She was still having fun outside on her brother's birthday, but she did not know how to come back earlier. However, after what happened last time, they no longer dared to talk too much in front of Baijuan. They could only stand aside obediently and be wallflowers. Vice Commander Zhang walked over from inside and whispered into Baijuan's ear, "Young master, the chief is asking when to cut the cake?" Baijuan still did not say anything. He stood there tall and slender. His slender fingers were clenched one by one as if he was enduring something. Even the expression on his face had become a little cold. When Gu Rou saw this scene, the corners of her lips curled up into a smile. She had long said that the difference between a 12-year-old and a 17-year-old was more than 5 years. Two people with different thoughts were destined to not be together. Aju's youth, ignorance had finally begun to make Baijuan feel uncomfortable. What did she mean by liking or not liking? It was just a habit that she had developed since she was young. Gu Rou had also heard from Auntie Wang and the others that when Aju first came to the Bai family, Baijuan was not very welcoming. It just so happened that the child came at the right time. At that time, Baijuan was alone at home, so it was very easy for him to develop feelings for others. It was not impossible for him to mistake that feeling for liking someone. Now, after this incident, Baijuan would probably be completely disappointed in that child. Chapter 12:25. When Gu Rou thought of this, the corners of her mouth curled up slightly. She suppressed the joy in her heart and was about to gently persuade him. Baijuan's deep voice sounded, "Tell grandfather to cut the cake after 9 o'clock. Let the people who come eat something and dance first." This. Vice Commander Zhang hesitated. Was it okay to suddenly change the banquet process? Baijuan raised his head, his eyes indifferent. "Aju is not back yet. Before she comes back, I will not cut this cake. Do as I say." Yes. Ever since that incident, young master had never been so willful again. Fortunately, he had made sufficient preparations in advance. There was only the opening of the banquet and not the specific starting point. It would only extend the duration of the entire banquet. Vice Commander Zhang recalled that young master had hoped that the banquet would end earlier. Looking at the current situation, he could not help but worry that his body would not be able to take it. Gu Rou had never thought that Baijuan would actually make so many changes for such a child. Could it be that he had not heard clearly that Aju was with someone else now? After hearing Baijuan's words, Gu Rou's heart churned again and again. Even if we don't have to cut the cake, we still have to go in first. Standing here, there's no way to greet the guests. Gu Rou tried her best to smile generously. Moreover, when Aju comes later, someone will definitely tell us. Li Hailu also wanted Baijuan to go in. The main reason was that although there was a bonfire in the courtyard in the middle of winter, it was still very cold. Baijuan was already sick. If he continued to blow in the wind outside, he would definitely have a fever. Helpless, Baijuan did not seem to have any intention of entering the house. "When the cake is cut, I will appear. All of you can go in." This. Li Hailu stood at the side and was really anxious. Shaolin glanced at him and lowered his voice. "We have to find Aju. Otherwise, this birthday party will never start." "That's easy for you to say. Where are we going to find her?" Li Hailu gritted his teeth. "That Hellion Qingchen is strange. She's from our school. Even your mother doesn't know her exact address. There is nothing in the file. Aju's phone can't be reached either. We simply have no clue." Shaolin glanced at Baijuan again. "Even so, we still have to look for him. At the very least, we have to try. Otherwise, no one knows how long Baijuan will stand outside." After hearing Deputy Zhang's reply, Old Master Bai frowned. However, in the depths of his heart, he also hoped that Aju would accompany his grandson on this birthday. All these years, although others did not know, Old Master Bai knew very well that his grandson did not treat Aju like an ordinary brother treating his younger sister. He treated her as his future daughter-in-law. In the past, he had reminded Baijuan not to always subtly want to monopolize a person. The consequences would definitely not be good. At that time, what did his grandson say? "Either you don't start at all or you spend your whole life." Old Master Bai shook his head. At that time, how old was Baijuan? He had already mentioned his entire life. This child had always had a plan for his life. He didn't need to worry about anything. Only feelings. People who had lost their parents tended to treat relationships differently. Sometimes he was really worried that Bai Jun was afraid of losing because he had too many plans. That was why he only did not say anything and really missed out on what he wanted. Old Master Bai's eyes darkened. He said to Deputy Zhang, "Just do as young master said. Push back the time of the cake cutting and let people eat meat and drink first. Then arrange for a few people to wait outside the courtyard. As soon as a Jew appears, immediately bring her over." "Old chief, don't worry. Young master has already sent people out." However, since it was what a Jew wanted to do as her brother, he naturally supported it. "I'll call a car to send you back." As Helian Qingchen spoke, he turned on the phone on the table, only to find that there was an unread WeChat message on the screen. It was actually from his father. It was simply unscientific. Chapter 12:26. There was a rare fluctuation in Helian Qingchen's eyes. She opened WeChat. There were only 5 words on it, which was very in line with her father's cold and arrogant personality. "The Buddha's head is in the Bai family." After seeing this message, Helian Qingchen suddenly paused. Then she received a second message. "Get ready. The whole family is gathering." Seeing this, the corners of Helian Qingchen's mouth completely curled up. Her eyes were clear as she patted Aju's head. Even her voice was lighter than usual. "Aju, it seems that you have to return to the Bai family as soon as possible." Since the Buddha's head had already arrived at the Bai family, only Bai Jun would give the purple jade Buddha's head to his little sister after thinking about it. They did not have to wait until the spring festival. They could reunite at any time. Since it was a WeChat message from her father, her brother must have received it as well. Helian Qingchen's guess was right. Bailey Shangxie had indeed received the same message. At that time, Bailey Shangxie was listening to his manager tell him about the movie script. There was also a stylist who was blowing his hair by the side. His eyes were shining and his face was full of emotion. It was as if he had already become a fan of Bailey Shangxie. Compared to Helian Qingchen, Bailey Shangxie had always been cold and aloof. It was as if it was that kind of innate nobility that made him so popular that whenever he appeared, people would cover their mouths and scream. At this moment he was sitting in front of the retro bronze mirror. His left hand was supporting his chin while his other hand was casually scrolling through Weibo. Suddenly a WeChat message came. For a moment, Bailey Shangxie did not want to open it. He did not want to see anything that his father sent him. But when he clicked on it, the expression in his dark eyes suddenly changed. Then he stood up from his seat. The gold medal manager immediately reacted. "Wait a minute. Young master, what are you going to do? You still have an interview later. Have you forgotten?" "I haven't forgotten." Bailey Shangxie smiled and reached out to pat his manager's shoulder. "That's why I'm going to have to trouble you again, old fan." "What do you mean by that? The person who is going to be interviewed is you, not—" "No, wait. Stop him." The golden agent was about to go crazy. Regardless of his expensive suit, he rushed into the crowd with Bailey Shangxie. Just as he was about to grab hold of the young man, he saw Bailey Shangxie turn sideways and jump out of the window with one hand against the wall. He waved his hand with his back facing him. Such a neat and handsome movement was immediately captured by the reporters who were waiting to interview Bailey Shangxie. All of them swarmed over like a swarm of bees. Seeing this scene, even the best manager in the Juwei group was mentally and physically exhausted. He had to face questions from the media one after another, such as where the young master had gone, why was he in such a hurry to climb through the window, and so on. The top manager took no response as a response and calmly maintained the cool smile on his face. In fact, he also wanted to know where his artist had gone. On the other side, Aju still didn't understand why her second brother suddenly became so happy. She had originally wanted to return to the Bai family as soon as possible. Moreover, her second brother's movements were much faster. Usually when she left, he was not like this. He would always kiss her forehead. Today her second brother seemed to be in a hurry. She didn't know what he was going to do. Could it be that her second brother also had a girlfriend? Aju thought about it seriously and felt that it might be possible. However, Aju did not guess too much. Gu Rou tugged at her girlfriend, but her eyes were in agreement. Don't talk nonsense. You guys go in. I'll wait outside with Baizhuan. No need. Baizhuan finally opened his mouth, but it was accompanied by one cough after another. His voice was very cold and distant. This is the Bai family's banquet. We are the ones who are waiting. If it weren't for Grandpa Bai, this banquet would definitely have ended on bad terms. Baizhuan was also anxious, that's why he was like this. That's right. The two girls next to Gu Rou also walked over and advised her earnestly, Aju, you have to be more sensible in the future. You don't know how ugly Colonel Bai's expression was just now. Adjutant Zhang even came out to call him a few times. You're right. It's good that you just came back with us, but you just had to go and play with others. Not only did you delay things, but you even made everyone wait for you. Look at how you're dressed now. You really don't look like a child. It's not good if others see you later. After all, you're Baizhuan's sister. Chapter 12:28. Hearing this, Aju lowered her eyes and looked at her own clothes. Although there were no proper decorations, they were very clean and decent. There was nothing wrong with them. Don't say any more. I heard from Grandpa Bai that Aju is usually very sensible and saves money. After all, she knows that her surname is not Bai, so it's good to do this. As soon as Gu Rou finished speaking, the two girls widened their eyes and looked at Aju in disbelief. There was something else in their eyes. So her surname is not Bai. No wonder. Gu Rou smiled lightly. Even if her surname is not Bai, Baizhuan treats her no differently from his own sister, right Aju? Aju did not say anything. Her small body stood there and told herself 3 times not to hit people casually. She scooped up a glass of fruit juice and lowered her head to drink it. In between her actions, the Buddha head that Baizhuan had put on her wrist was revealed. Gu Rou also saw that item, and the jealousy in her eyes was more than surprise. That was the purple jade Buddha head that even her grandfather wanted. It was said that it was very expensive and had reached a certain level. She still remembered that when she first met Baizhuan had come into contact with her grandfather because of the Buddha head and the project. The reason why he had agreed to accompany her shopping seemed to have something to do with this Buddha head. However, she had always thought that he wanted this thing for his own use or to give it to Grandpa Bai. Gu Rou had never thought that he would give such a valuable thing to a child so casually. Her eyes darkened. Gu Rou pretended to be surprised, but her voice was very low, afraid that others would hear her. This thing. I have one too. Aju, this is a gift from your brother, right? He's just so lazy. He saw what I like and bought it for you. When Aju heard this, she frowned and lowered her head to look at her wrist, but her eyes were very dark. This was specially picked for me by little brother. I can feel it. Gu Rou did not expect that her words would be useless to this child. She should not be like this. After so many days, shouldn't she have some self-awareness by now? It is indeed different. Gu Rou was smart because she knew how to retreat. Mine is not this color. The details are also different. It's just that they are all Buddha heads. I'm the same as Baizhuan. It's okay to look at them, but I'm not very used to wearing them. Unlike Aju, who is still young and suitable to wear these things. Gu Rou, stop talking about a Buddha statue. Tell me, what did you prepare for Colonel Bai? One of the two girls obviously didn't want to talk to Aju after knowing her identity. She pulled Gu Rou and said, I heard that other than the watch we bought together, you have an additional surprise for Colonel Bai. A faint smile appeared on Gu Rou's gentle and moving face. Well, I can't tell you yet. You'll know after we cut the cake. Baizhuan has always wanted this thing. Grandfather asked me to personally give it to him. I don't know what he was thinking. He definitely wants you to send yourself out as well. The two girls jokingly pushed her. Don't worry, our senior Bai definitely won't refuse. You're so beautiful and have so many betrothal gifts. Whoever marries you will be unhappy, right? Gu Rou's face was red. Don't talk nonsense. What betrothal gifts? If you continue to be like this, I won't talk to you anymore. You're even shy. Aju listened to the conversation between these people and glanced at the purple jade Buddha head on her hand. The little brother really confirmed his relationship with Gu Rou in a while. Her little Alla probably wouldn't need to be sent off. Perhaps it was really because she was too young that she was treated as a child again and again. In fact, the little brother didn't have to worry about her at all. She wouldn't cry because of such a thing even if it was very uncomfortable. She also knew that no matter what the little brother did, his original intention had never been to hurt her. However, what she said to her second brother was true. She always wanted to beat people up. At that time she would make things difficult for the little brother again. Now, the little brother had already delayed time in order to wait for her. Therefore she couldn't be insensible anymore. However, could it be an illusion? The smell of meat that used to be very unpleasant was very faint today, as if it was isolated by something. Instead, the smell that entered her nose was replaced by a faint sandalwood smell. Aju was very familiar with that smell. When she used to live in the temple and read in the morning, she would often smell it. Every time her master began to recite the scriptures, 3 incense sticks would be lit in the hall of great strength. Her senior brother would knock on the wooden fish while she sat beside her senior brother and meditated. At that time it was this smell. Aju wrinkled her little nose. The smell was faintly discernible and was not easy to catch. The strange thing was that the people around them did not smell anything. The topic of discussion of the ladies changed from Baijun to Gu Rou. Aju was small to begin with. Now that she was standing to the side, she was indeed ignored. In addition, there were already many guests here. Other than Baijun, who stayed behind to protect her, the others had indeed placed their gazes on Gu Rou, who was wearing a white sandwoven dress. It was not because of anything else, but because they had also heard that the Bai and Gu families were going to have a get-together. Of course, this news was a little untrue, but after all, they were of similar age, so it might really be possible. They were all in the same circle. In addition, Gu Rou was old Master Gu's granddaughter, so the frequency of her being praised was naturally high. Old Master Gu is really lucky to be able to raise such an outstanding granddaughter. That's right. Don't you see what kind of background the Gu family has? I wonder if she has a boyfriend. I really want to go over and get to know her. Alright, you don't even have to think about it anymore. That's the school belle of our second high school. She's a couple with young Master Bai. They're such a good match. Although they haven't confirmed their relationship yet, do you think you can compare to young Master Bai? Brother, save it. Gu Rou listened to the discussions beside her. Not only did she not stop them, but the corners of her mouth curled up into a smile. Then she walked to Aju's side. Aju, your brother is going to speak in a while. Did you buy any gifts for him? Over there is the gift pool. If you have them, it's best to put them there so that your brother can open them later. Aju did not say anything. Gucheng saw her face through the crowd. He strode over with a wine glass in his hand. Little Bean, why are you only here now? You only know how to drink. Aju has been here for a while. She didn't bring anything with her, so I reminded her to put the gifts, Gu Rou said with a faint smile. Gucheng raised his eyebrows. Indeed, you should put the gifts. Little Bean, where are the lighters you bought for your brother? Lighters? One of the girls heard this and laughed softly. Aju, it's your brother's birthday. You gave him a lighter. This is too embarrassing. It was Baijun's parents who sacrificed themselves to save the passengers on the plane. Baijun's father was a very admirable soldier, and Baijun had obviously inherited this kind of spirit that could not be described with words. The older one was, the more they knew what kind of spirit it was. It was never just a casual remark. There was such a person who could clearly live a more comfortable and relaxed life, but for the sake of protecting his family and country he gave up many direct shortcuts. Perhaps this was the Huaxia soldiers. The inheritance that had fused into their blood did not seem to be changed by anything. A burst of applause erupted in the hall because of Baijun's words. It was all given to this child by the old commanders who wanted to retire. Old Master Gu stood in the middle, admiring it while nodding gently. His old face was full of a satisfied smile, as if he was very satisfied with Baijun. Then he glanced at Gu Rou and asked the person beside him to pass the thing to his granddaughter. leaning on the dragon-headed walking stick in his hand. A hint of kindness appeared between his brows. Go. Bai Jun has always wanted this document. I always delayed giving it to him. Such a time is the most suitable to give him the birthday present he likes the most. That kid Bai Jun will definitely be happy. Under the envious gazes of her friends, Gu Rou blushed and softly nodded. Then she dragged the hem of her white dress and walked towards Bai Jun's position. She had long said that she knew Bai Jun as well as she knew herself. People like them were born to like power. Bai Jun and her were the most perfect combination. Since that child always refused to believe it, then she would let her see with her own eyes what the gap between them was. From the moment Gu Rou walked towards Bai Jun, the gazes of all the guests in the room moved casually towards her. The atmosphere of the birthday banquet instantly reached a new height. Isn't that the Gu family's girl? What does she want to do? Could it be a confession? Oh my god, so romantic. The two girls who followed Gu Rou also clenched their hands tightly. They looked at the scene in front of them excitedly, looking forward to the next development. On the other hand, Bai Jun, who was standing tall and straight, did not see anyone walking towards him at the beginning. He had his back facing Gu Rou the entire time. His eyes were looking at the crowd as if he was looking for someone. Then after he heard the discussions of the crowd, he turned his head. At this moment, Gu Rou had already walked to his side with a document in her hand. Bai Jun lowered his eyes. A faint cold light flashed through his bottomless eyes. Gu Rou was wearing a pure white and fresh gauze dress. Her soft long hair draped over her shoulders, and her head was decorated with some bright stars, making her look like a gentle angel. Following the laughter around her, Gu Rou smiled gently. Bai Jun, this is the Gu Corporation contract you've always wanted. I'm giving it to you as your birthday present. I hope you like it. As soon as she finished speaking, the hall burst into an uproar. At this moment, Gu Rou seemed to have become the focus of everyone's attention. Even if Aju did not know anything, she knew how precious this gift was. Seeing this, Aju was stunned. Her big round eyes dimmed a little. Before Bai Jun could answer, she heard an unusual commotion coming from behind her. Chapter 1231. Then Aju saw her little brother's face turn cold. Gu Rou, Li Hailu and the others all widened their eyes. At this time she seemed to have realized something. She suddenly turned her body and followed everyone's gaze to the door. There was a youth who was as calm as the wind standing in the light. His windbreaker fluttered in the wind and the corners of his mouth were slightly curved. His smile was very beautiful. It was bright and clean like water poured down from the sun, as if it could sweep away all the grievances in the depths of one's heart. Second brother. Aju called out from the bottom of her heart. After a short trot, she directly ran in front of Hellion Qingchen. She seemed to be extremely happy. Her two cat ears stood up and her eyes, which were dim just now, were filled with light. Why was second brother here? Didn't he say that he was busy? Li Hailu also wanted to ask this question. Hellion Qingchen, why are you here? He did not remember sending an invitation to this guy. Hellion Qingchen smiled and a faint arc appeared on her beautiful lips. I'm here to deliver a gift on behalf of Aju. Deliver a gift? Li Hailu snorted coldly. If Aju has a gift, will Aju give it herself? Do I need to give it to you? As he spoke, he walked over. Although he did not make a move, his eyes were fixed on Hellion Qingchen's face. Hellion Qingchen had no intention of retreating at all. His long and thick eyelashes drooped down, forming a dark shadow. His entire person gave people the impression that he had a kind of indifferent feeling. The atmosphere between the two of them was obviously not right. Old Master Bai, who was dressed in a military uniform, looked at this scene and frowned slightly. Immediately, an adjutant walked over and came to Hellion Qingchen's side. When Aju saw that the adjutants had moved, her ears pricked up. She turned to the side and stood in front of Hellion Qingchen, looking at the other party with a firm gaze. When the adjutants saw that Aju was protecting that person, they were stunned for a moment and could not help but look at their young master. Bai Jun's eyes had already followed Aju's movements, and they were extremely cold. His pair of dark eyes were deep, unlike his usual self. Shaolin watched worriedly from the side. He turned to the side and whispered to Hellion Qingchen, If you want to fight, we can accompany you any day, but not today. Today is Bai Jun's birthday. All the guests are here. It's not suitable for us to be tit for tat. If you cause trouble here, the person who will be in trouble in the end will only be a Jew." After Hellion Qingchen heard this, she laughed softly. "Shaolin, I just said that I'm here to deliver the gift on behalf of a Jew. You can continue with your business. Don't worry about me. I don't care about you. What's the meaning of your high-profile appearance?" Li Hailu really wanted to grab Hellion Qingchen by the collar and interrogate her. However, he had to restrain himself. It would not be good to make a move on Bai Jun's birthday party. Gu Rou looked at this scene and said with a faint smile, "A Jew, your friend doesn't have an invitation, right? Why did he come just like that? I don't even know how to continue delivering the gift." A Jew narrowed her big eyes and glanced in Gu Rou's direction. She silently recited 3 times not to beat people up before reaching out to grab Hellion Qingchen's hand. Hellion Qingchen did not have the time to fight with Gu Rou in the past, but now it was different. "Who said I don't have an invitation?" Hellion Qingchen looked at the purple jade Buddha head on a Jew's wrist, and the corners of her mouth revealed a meaningful smile. The 2 girls beside Gu Rou laughed one after another, and there was obvious ridicule in their voices. "You really dare to brag. Aren't you afraid that the wind will blow your tongue off? Who are you? Are you worthy of the Bai family sending you an invitation? Stop dreaming, okay?" When the surrounding guests heard this, all of them turned to look at Hellion Qingchen. They tilted their heads and began to discuss. Old Master Bai's face also lost its usual kindness. However, it was not directed at Hellion Qingchen. It was just that he did not like the words of these 2 juniors. It was too unpleasant to hear and too sarcastic. A Jew felt that she was about to lose control of the primordial power in her body. Even Buddha Wuli's guidance was about to be useless. She looked at Bai Jun again. Yes, she looked at him again. Otherwise she would really pounce on him and beat him up. Bai Jun's eyes were also looking at her. It could also be said that from the beginning he had been looking for a juke. However, he did not expect that when he found her she would directly run to another person's side. Hellion Qingchen. Ever since this person appeared, he had already started to lose her. Until now he was extremely sober as he watched himself sink into depravity. When the pain reached a certain point, it was the ruthlessness that he no longer wanted to let go. "Did you come here?" Bai Jun suddenly opened his mouth. Perhaps it was because he had not recovered from his cold, but his voice was hoarse and cold. Aju did not move. She knew that if she moved, Bai Jun would definitely deal with her second brother. He could see it. "I'll say it again. Come here." Bai Jun saw that she did not even have the slightest intention of returning to his side. His throat, which was already red, seemed to have been burned by a fire. It was so painful that he was covered in cuts and bruises. A Jew glanced at Bai Jun and then looked at Gu Rou, who was standing not far away from him. She remembered the scene where that person wanted to give her a gift and shook her head silently. This time Bai Jun could not even feel the pain. His eyes were like water. He just looked at the small face that he had raised since she was young. His chest was so stuffy that it almost made him feel uncomfortable to even breathe. For him, you don't even listen to Bai Jun's words? Bai Jun's voice was very hoarse, as if it was being ground out from his throat. A Jew opened her mouth as if she wanted to say something. Her voice was as gentle as a trickling stream, as if she was the other host of the banquet. She said warmly, "All right, let's not talk about it anymore. Since you're a Jew's friend, it doesn't matter if you have an invitation or not. It's a good thing that you can come. Let's continue to give gifts. Didn't a Jew also have a gift for your friend to give to your little brother? Why don't you take it out and take a look?" "Yeah, Jew, where's your lighter? Hurry up and give it to your brother." The 2 girls laughed again. "However, you have to ask your friend for help to give a lighter. This is making a mountain out of a molehill." Hellion Qingchen listened to these mocking words and smiled lightly. "Who told you that the gift I want to give on behalf of a Jew is a lighter? What else?" Gu Rou also smiled and pointed out, "Qingchen, we are very clear about your family situation, so it's better to do what you can with gifts." The 2 girls were even more disapproving. "What gift is so nice to hear? Who knows how shabby it might be? A Jew, this friend you found to give you a gift is too unpresentable." Chapter 1232. When Aju heard this, she immediately clenched her fists. Her entire body was in a state of battle readiness. She was like a little tiger that was about to stretch out her claws and bite. At this moment, an evil and arrogant voice suddenly sounded from the door. Who said that my brother is not presentable? It was just a short moment. The hall fell into a dead silence. Everyone seemed to be holding their breaths. Especially the female guests present. Whether they were adults or not, their faces were filled with uncontrollable excitement. Enchanting did not need to turn around to know who had come. The corners of her mouth were half-curved as she looked in Gu Ro's direction. The birthday present that I wanted to give on behalf of Aju has arrived. For some reason, that half-smile that did not show her teeth actually made Gu Ro feel a chill down her spine. At this moment, the slender figure that could gather all the resplendent light had already walked in. He placed his left hand on Enchanting's shoulder in a very beautiful posture. His fair skin was glowing like a vampire noble, and the corners of his mouth carried a unique viciousness that could make countless girls infatuated with him. It was luxurious, dark, and enough to topple a city. A strand of silver hair hung down and blocked his eyes, as if his face could not be seen clearly. But even so, people could also recognize him. That was Enchanting, the real-life version of Enchanting. This thought swept through all the women present like a storm, including the two girls who had just mocked Enchanting. After all, Enchanting did not seem like an ordinary idol star. Every drama he filmed, the characters created would be hailed as classics. Not to mention the 16 or 17-year-old students, even the older rich ladies present had always been fascinated by the role he played. Enchanting's ability to charm people could not be described with words. In addition, everyone knew what kind of background he had. The young director of the Ju group held the economic lifelines of countless industries in his hands. Such a person actually said that Enchanting was his younger brother? The faces of the two girls who had been smug suddenly lost all color. Without a doubt, they were all fans of Enchanting and they liked Enchanting very much. Even the screen of their phones was Enchanting's photo. But what did they just do? They actually insulted the young master's most beloved younger brother. All the fans knew that Enchanting cared about his younger brother the most. Even when he grew up, the title of his brother Guomin had not been removed. But how did things turn out like this? Didn't that Enchanting have no background? How did he become the young master's younger brother? Gu Ro's expression also began to turn ugly. She originally wanted to use Enchanting, this poor boy, to make things difficult for Aju. However, she did not expect that she would accidentally provoke the people from Ju group. What should she do now? How was she going to smooth things over? Gu Ro clenched her fists anxiously. Enchanting's appearance was undoubtedly like throwing a huge rock in the hall. Even Li Hailu and Xiao Lin's expressions turned blank for a moment. What was going on? Why did Enchanting come here? How did he become Enchanting's brother? Questions that they could not even think of before popped up one after another. They only felt that something seemed to be out of their control. It seemed that this time things were really a little complicated. Only Aju was very happy. She held the little white cat in her hand and looked at Enchanting with her small face. It was really the first time she had seen him. It was the first time she had seen her big brother in person. Her big brother and second brother were completely different. They were clearly both born by her mother. Aju was overjoyed, so her thoughts were a little incoherent. Enchanting also lowered his head and met his little sister's big eyes that were as clear as water. He looked at the small Aju. Enchanting endured it again and again before he controlled his hand and did not pick up his little cute thing. He was afraid that if he touched his little sister, she would feel uncomfortable. Aju did not care if her big brother hugged her or not. She raised a pair of small ears and a beautiful little face. She quietly reached out and grabbed Enchanting's sleeve. The three siblings were finally standing together. Enchanting's hand was still on Enchanting's shoulder. Aju stood in front of her second brother looking very cute. With the smiling Enchanting as the center, the three of them stood in the middle of the hall. Each of them had their own characteristics, and each of them made people unable to take their eyes off them. When combined, they looked like a scene from a comic. Just now, someone thought that I was too shabby, so they questioned me and asked if I had received an invitation from the Bai family. Enchanting said with a faint smile. So if my brother didn't appear, I would actually be looked down upon like this. It's just because I rode a bicycle to school. Girls nowadays are really powerful. Don't you think so, Miss Gu? Gu Rou, who was named, froze. She could feel many gazes shooting in her direction. This made her want to find a hole to hide in. Hellion Qingchen ignored her and looked at Old Master Bai. I remember that Old Master Bai sent 4 invitations to our family. He even mentioned on the invitations that he hoped my mother could bring us along to attend. That's right. Old Master Bai's laughter was heard. It was still bright and clear. I didn't expect that girl's child to be so big. Good, really good. Hellion Qingchen smiled again. Thank you for your concern, Old Master Bai. My family has always been unexpected. At this point he lowered his head to look at his little sister in front of him. Old Master Bai saw that the doting look in his eyes was not hidden at all. He thought that this child had also fallen in love with a Jew. He turned around and looked at his grandson worriedly. Hellion Qingchen continued, this time, our whole family came here not only to congratulate young Master Bai on his birthday, but also for one more thing. Chapter 1234. However, at this moment, Gu Rou did not know what the relationship between Hellion Vivian and a Jew was. Just by listening to Hellion Wei Wei's words, Gu Rou thought that this woman with a high status was speaking up for her. She immediately looked at Hellion Wei Wei with a smile on her face. Fortunately, I have you who believes in me. Old Master Gu also thought that Hellion Vivian's words were to help his granddaughter out. He immediately walked up with the dragon-headed walking stick in his hand and said to Beligaju, Xiuju, what a coincidence. We meet again. Bailey Jiaju did not say anything. He was just like a well-mannered aristocrat, standing there with an indifferent expression. Old Master Gu continued, Xiuju and Madam are the most sensible. The children know best about the matters between them. Since everyone is here, let's not let misunderstandings create estrangement. I brought a bottle of red wine that has been in my collection for 100 years. Let's have a few drinks with Old Bai today for the banquet. Thank you, madam, for speaking up for my granddaughter. Speaking up for your granddaughter? When Beligaju heard this, he couldn't help but tilt his head and smile. His silver hair fell to the side with his movements, leaving only a faint smile on his lips. I don't think my madam meant that at all. Hellion Vivian also smiled. Her clear eyes glanced in Gu Rou's direction before she said to Old Master Jiang, Old man, the misunderstanding I'm talking about is not the misunderstanding your granddaughter is talking about. You're really thinking too much. Hearing this, Gu Rou's face instantly froze. The pitiful smile that was originally on her face stopped awkwardly on her face. She didn't expect this situation to be caused by her overthinking. No matter what, she was still the daughter of the Gu family. Knowing that her 2 sons had misunderstood her, shouldn't Hellion Vivian speak up for her? Why did it feel like the other party was saying that she was trying to climb up the social ladder? Gu Rou bit her lip tightly. She really didn't know how to smooth things over for herself. She couldn't help but look at her grandfather. Old Master Gu also felt like he had been hit in the head. He didn't expect that at his age he would still lose face like this. No matter what, thank you, madam, for unintentionally helping our innocent child out of this predicament. He thought that if he said this she would laugh it off. After all, they were all in the business world. Even if the Gu family was indeed not comparable to the Ju Wei group. At this point, this matter should be considered to be over. However, what he didn't expect was that Hellion Vivian didn't have any intention of giving him a way out. Instead, after hearing his words, the corners of her mouth curled up. It was very cold. Old Master Gu, after I give you the gift in my hand, let's talk about this misunderstanding again. Let's see whose child is innocent, because we really should have a good talk about family education. At this point she paused and looked at the tall and straight youth. She smiled faintly and handed something over. I heard that it's popular to give contracts as birthday gifts nowadays. Since Bai Jun likes it, I also have a contract here. It's signed with the Ju Wei group. 10% of the profits will be purchased. Bai Jun, this is for you. Happy birthday. It was also a contract, but the Ju Wei group's contract meant something. No one present didn't know what that meant. This was simply several streets ahead of the Gu family's contract. However, Bai Juan didn't take it. Even his expression didn't change because his gaze was always on a Jew. Hellion Vivian smiled when she saw this. She turned her head to look at old Master Bai and said, "Old Chief, your grandson really doesn't disappoint." However, this first birthday gift must be given out because this gift is to thank Bai Juan for giving the purple jade Buddha head that he worked so hard to get to a Jew. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to come at this time. Purple jade Buddha head? Old Master Bai still didn't know about this matter, but he was very sharp and sensed that something was wrong with those words. Why do you have to thank Bai Juan for giving a Jew something? Old Master Bai turned his face and pretended to be serious as he asked Hellion Vivian, "Girl, what exactly is going on?" Speaking of which, old Master Bai and Hellion Vivian used to know each other. However, it was not a direct superior-subordinate relationship. It was when old Master Bai was at the border. Young Master Tang had sent the ghost organization over to provide support. From then on, old Master Bai had the idea of taking Hellion Vivian as his adopted daughter. Unfortunately, the girl ran away quickly. When they contacted each other again, she said that the people at home were all evil and it was not convenient for her to come to the Bai family. This time she came, but she always said something inexplicable. Nothing. Hellion Vivian smiled lightly. Because a Jew is the person I mentioned to you before. You mean? Even old Master Bai, who had experienced great storms, began to lose his composure. His eyes flickered as he looked at a Jew who was standing under the light with a cute face. This child, she was actually, Hellion Vivian curled her lips. Her voice was not loud, but her words were clear. That's right, she's my daughter. This sentence was like a thunderclap that sounded on the flat ground, heavily smashing into the banquet. The contract document that Gu Rou was still holding in her hand fell. Her face seemed to have been slapped hard by someone and she could not help but turn pale. Everyone present couldn't help but make different sounds after hearing this news. Xiao Lin and Li Hailu were standing not far away. They looked at a Jew in a daze, their faces full of disbelief. Hellion Vivian's daughter? Then isn't she the legendary little princess of the Ju Wei group? The one who has never been seen before? How could it be her? Gu Rou did not believe her ears at all. How could that child who only knew how to eat and drink become the little princess of the Ju Wei group? She was clearly an orphan who came down from the mountain. She should have saved a lot of money. She had already heard about a Jew's situation from her grandfather. It was Grandpa Bai who told her grandfather personally. They had brought a Jew back from a temple in a remote mountain area. The incense in that temple was not strong. If it were not for the fact that the abbot was an expert, Bai Juan would have been sent there to counsel him. No one would know about that kind of remote place. Moreover, Grandpa Bai also said that a Jew had already stayed in the temple when she was a baby. When a Jew was young, she always said that she would go and find her family when she grew up. But no one would take a child's words seriously. Which truly wealthy family would send a child to a temple at such a young age? Therefore Gu Rou made up her mind. Even if a Jew had a family, it would only be those poor farmers who casually threw their children away because they could not live a good life. Chapter 1235. Gu Rou had always relied on her own guesses to think that a Jew was from a poor family. However, a Jew was lucky enough to meet a kind senior monk who picked her up and brought her back to the temple. She used this opportunity to get close to the Bai family. If that senior monk was not Bai Juan's master. I'm afraid no one knows who a Jew is yet. At most she was just a village girl. How could she become Bai Juan's sister? It was because of this relationship that Gu Rou wanted to isolate her without any fear. How could an orphan girl become the Bai family's treasure just by relying on luck? She even became the only person Bai Juan allowed to get close to. But now, someone actually told her that that child was not a village girl, but the little princess of the Ju Wei group. Gu Rou only felt a burning pain on her face. Disbelief could not replace her current emotions at all. Because the smile on Hellion Vivian's face was obviously telling her what it meant to humiliate herself. When she saw this scene, her heart skipped a beat. There was only one thought in her mind. She was finished. The two girls who had been following behind her complacently couldn't help but turn pale. They knew that Aju was not the biological granddaughter of the Bai family. Instead, they heard the news of her being adopted from some mountainous area from Gu-ro. Therefore, they did not take that child seriously. Now, as long as they thought of what they had said, the two girls' hearts trembled. The little princess of the Ju Wei group. They could not wait to curry favor with her. They could not afford to offend her at all. Such news was indeed like a bombshell. Not only did it give a heavy blow to those who had mocked Aju, but even Bai Juan's usually indifferent gaze shook violently. His clean and handsome face was filled with shock. He looked at the child he had raised for nearly 8 years. He had never thought that she would have any family other than him. Ever since they were on the mountain, that child had used her soft little hand to hold his fingertips. She was wearing a kasaya and had a bald head. She had called him Big Brother seriously and said that she would treat him well in the future. Bai Juan told himself that he had to raise this child as his own. He had to give her everything he could. As long as she wanted it, as long as he had it. It did not matter that Aju did not have parents. Anyway, Aju had him. He would make her the happiest person in the world. He remembered that when she was young, the little girl would always tumble in his arms. She even said that her mother had sent her away for a reason, but she didn't say the exact reason. At that time, Bai Juan only felt his heart ache because he could clearly see the longing hidden in the child's eyes. He thought that she was like him, who had lost her parents a long time ago. That was why he used such words to comfort himself. But now, Bai Juan looked at the still cute little tiger face. For a moment, it was as if a bottle of colorful paint had been flipped over in his heart. He didn't know how to describe that feeling. His girl finally had a family. No wonder Aju likes Bailey Shangxie so much since she was young. She was very passionate about his movies and whatnot. Li Heila's IQ seemed to have been lit up all of a sudden. He slapped his forehead and said, "Oh my God, so that's how it is. Because of that guy, she looked at me fiercely many times." Shaolin also remembered the first time he took Aju shopping. When Aju saw Bailey Shangxie on the big screen of the advertisement in the shopping mall. At that time, he felt that Aju did not seem like a child who would chase after celebrities. However, when it came to the problem of Bailey Shangxie, she was especially irrational. She was like a little girl chasing after her idol. Bailey Shangxie did not appear on television very often. Every time Bailey Shangxie came out, her round almond eyes would light up. At that time, Bai Juan had even eaten a big bowl of vinegar because of this matter. He had even made a fuss about going out to live outside once. Now that he thought about it, as a sister, she must have been extremely supportive and fond of her brother. Also, when they met Hellion Qingchen in the school cafeteria and provoked her, no wonder Aju had such a reaction. She looked at them with vigilance and did not give in at all. At that time, they still did not understand why Aju would fight with them to such an extent for an outsider. Now the truth was out. When they were fighting with Hellion Qingchen, there were 2 girls beside them who kept mocking Hellion Qingchen. According to Aju's temper, she did not directly rush over at that time and send them flying with a kick. This was already the greatest extent of her tolerance. At that time, Aju probably cared about their face, so she did not beat up Gu-ro and the others. But even so, he and Hai Lu were very clear about how Bai Juan had survived that day. In front of him, Aju chose to protect others. Bai Juan did not attend that afternoon's class, nor did he have the mood to care about other things. Otherwise, Gu-ro would not have jumped around for so long. When Shaolin thought of this, he turned his eyes and could not help but look in Bai Juan's direction. Now Bai Juan was most concerned about the identity of that person. Since Hellion Qingchen was Aju's brother, the 2 of them should be fine. However, Shaolin knew that Bai Juan had really done everything that he had disdained to do in the past for Aju. For example, going to the sea to do business. He was the one who opened up the connections, and Bai Juan was in charge of all the operations and commands. They earned a lot and were very good at making investments. After all, the resources were there. Bai Juan had always been like this. Compared to his peers, he was always so practical. All of this was because he wanted to become stronger. That youth had once told him personally that even without the Bai family, he would still give Aju the best life. But now not only did Aju have a family, but her background was also so unbelievable. With Bai Juan's personality, other than being happy, there should be something deeper. Hellion Vivian did not look at the reactions of the others. Her eyes had always been looking at the Gu family. Then she reached out and touched Aju's head. Her voice was flat, but it made old Master Gu's expression change immediately. The misunderstanding I was talking about is this misunderstanding. Hellion Vivian chuckled. My daughter is not as poor as Miss Gu thinks. Originally, I didn't want to make such a big fuss. It's just that a 17-year-old girl doesn't enjoy her youth and has to hide so many schemes to deal with someone younger than her. Old Master Gu, does your Gu family really think that there is no one behind my daughter? When Old Master Gu heard this, he looked at the gazes cast at them from all directions and hurriedly explained, this is all a misunderstanding. Xiao definitely has no intention of dealing with a Jew. You're tuning in to the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.